It's August 2nd. Cooper Kupp is hurt. Training camp is storming on. And of course, 5 days a week here on Splash Play, I am already in a draft room. Best Ball Mania 4 on Underdog. $3 million to first place. I want that $3 million. I need that $3 million. And more than that, I need to keep drafting some good teams on stream. Yesterday had the double streams here. One stream with my pal Pete Overzet, who's still going live with Sean Siegel. I appreciate you if you're coming over here from that one. But also a solo stream yesterday. Had a nice team on that one. So make sure to check the Splash Play archives. Check out the last few drafts we were trying to binge here. The goal is always going to be try to get a draft out on stream as fast as humanly possible. And today we are picking in the 9-hole. So no influencer 101s for me here. No Justin Jefferson bags being added up. But we will try to do what we can. Maybe some Garrett Wilson. I would like to get more of him as we go. Maybe Stephon Diggs if he falls back a spot. But lots of ways here to make this good. Made some slight tweaks here to the background as well for the streams. Hopefully you can see a little bit more of the board. You can see, of course, that big glorious plug here to use the promo code SPLASH on Underdog. But lots of things here we're going to try to improve on the channel as we go. The Cooper Kupp injury, though, I think we should talk about because I do think that is one that could lead to him falling in some rooms out there, especially on DraftKings where people are going to see that Q tag or that out tag. I don't know which one they've given him yet on DraftKings, but definitely a player that, you know, coming off of an injury last year, now a hamstring issue this year, should be good to go for scrimmages later in the offseason or later in the preseason rather. But still a thing for him that he's 30, you know, he's getting older. Certainly a thing where on DraftKings, especially, people hate that injury risk. So I think for Cooper Kupp, he's the kind of player that I'm willing to buy the dip on, but certainly another injury here would not be great. And you can see on Underdog still goes in the 5-hole. So Tyreek goes ahead of him. Maybe that's the one pivot that happens on Underdog a little bit more. But I really do think on DraftKings, which we're going to draft on tomorrow here on stream, I do think Cooper Kupp is probably going to fall a little bit more in those rooms just because DraftKings people very risk averse, do not like getting any chance at all of somebody being hurt out there. So that chat as well. Good morning to the sexy incarnate Spags. Thank you, Tyler. Coming from Tyler, who is our resident horn dog. I appreciate that a bunch. Kupp has been falling a lot. Got him at 108 in BBM. So there you go. So short gamer saying it does happen a little bit in these Underdog draft rooms as well. I just know how DraftKings goes, and those guys, any sort of faint chance of a player being hurt or not ready to go, and they do not want to draft a guy. Whereas Underdog drafters do tend to be a little bit sharper, a little bit smarter about how football works, which guys get hurt, guys go in and out. That's sort of the nature of the beast on Underdog. Of course, as we go here, I'll talk about the picks and I'll talk about some guys that I'm maybe want some more of as we go. Because this is not a big badge room, we've got Short Gamer in here. We've got some other guys, but not a lot. I do think this is a good time for me to get a share of Bijan Robinson. People actually yesterday, one guy came in the chat was like, hey, do you like building any hyper fragile teams with a few running backs early on? And I normally don't, but I do think in this spot, we'll see what these guys do. But if I got Bijan and Nick Chubb as a start, two of the running backs that I actually do like a lot, I think they have great potential to be the running back one at the end of the year. I'd be willing to do that today, but we'll see what we do. And Bijan, just a guy that probably can buy the dip on a little bit when he falls in some rooms, but I just want to get my exposure up because I am very low on Bijan so far. I will actually check the exact number right now, but I have to be under the expected 8% that everybody will have. Let's see. Bijan over 3% Bijan overall for me, which sucks, but I have so much Tyler Algier. I guess that's the way we'll do that mental gymnastics for me. And yeah, 4% Bijan in Best Ball Mania. So I do need to get my Bijan up as a guy that he might be fancy Tyler Algier, but regular ass Tyler Algier did pretty well for me. Love seeing a bigger board. Love to hear that. I'm glad to give you more board size, more board for your buck. That's the goal here on Splash Play. Am I still fading Barkley? I do not believe in Barkley very much. So yeah, I am. All right. So we did get Chubb back to us. They're going to tempt me here and I'm going to do it, guys. So this is it. 2 running backs early on. Let's play the GIF. I am officially the thing that I hate the most. I'm a running back pig. Give me those running backs. Scarf them up. That's what I'm looking to do in drafts. But look, as I talked about, I'm doing 5 days a week of streams here, stream drafts rather. So I'm going to end up doing some teams that are not my usual, not the thing that I would normally go to. And that is the case for this team here. But God, I do believe a lot in Bijan Robinson and Nick Chubb. I can tell you guys that much. I don't love running backs. Don't love Saquon. Don't love those guys who are a lot of volume-based things. Even Jonathan Taylor with his trade stuff, that's not the issue for me. It's just that wasn't that great last year. And frankly, a lot of guys who do identify themselves as volume backs, you can tell from the advanced analytics, of course, I'll always cite the estimated points added in DVOA numbers being ones that you can look at as a frame of reference as hell if a player is a volume back or a person who's really adding value with every touch they get. And guys like Saquon to me, I'll read the numbers again, but Saquon, the most mid of mid as can be. Where he at? Saquon, negative 0.05 EPA per rush, negative 0.25 EPA per target, 0.2% DVOA. So he is average in terms of DVOA, but that is more reflective of the offensive environment for the Giants. Negative 23% receiving DVOA. So those things to me are a thing that I've done historically where you can identify players who are ones that could be on the downswing, where if you don't get that 20 touches a game, then all of a sudden that guy's a little bit less effective because he's not breaking the long plays quite as much. He's not adding as much value per every single time that they're trying to give him the ball. So that's a thing that I will have as a big part of my process this year, and we'll live and die by it. And we'll see how it goes at the end of the year. But it's been working really, really well DFS wise last year. So I think trying to add it to my best ball process has been a big focus for me. Short Gamer is 7th in my draft. Guess he wanted to make sure he got in. Short Gamer likes multi-table. Nothing wrong with that, especially if you are trying to make sure to get the entries in. I think, as I've talked about, DraftKings very hard to multi-table on. You have to pay a lot of attention on that site because of the fact that the notifications aren't great. On Underdog, the notifications are pretty much on time. So if you want to multi-table on there, I always go back to the active screen, make sure your pick is coming up at the right time frame. But honestly, you don't have to pay as much attention because it will give you that little blast to let you know you're actually up. Super fun start. I'll take it. I mean, look, if I'm going to make a bet on any running backs, I do think for me, Bijan and Chubb would be the ones that I would make the bet on. I don't love the overall construction still of taking running backs early. I will continue to defend that point of view. I certainly think that I get the logic why it is much easier to draft running backs this year than the last few years, where if you've been a staunch zero RB guy, you're probably paying off some dividends just by getting different from the field. This year, though, even the staunchest zero RB guys are really trying to get running backs in early because of the ADPs. The fact you can get a potential running back one in the second, third round. For me, though, it definitely is one of those things that there's not a lot of guys that I believe in this range. Eckler, we've talked about a little bit yesterday, just getting older and a more downfield offense. I think not great for him in a contract year where maybe he doesn't want to get as many touches, or maybe they don't want to give him as many touches, and see what a guy like Isaiah Spiller can do back there, or even Josh Kelly. I guess probably more so Spiller, though, because he does have the pedigree. So I think this year, two guys in this range that I really do have faith in would be Bijan and Chubb, and then Tony Pollard, some faith in, though. I do think the Rojo thing is kind of lurking around, the Malik Davis stuff. Deuce Vaughn still getting a lot of touches. I don't think he's built to get a lot of touches in an actual NFL game, but still a guy that is being heavily featured so far in training camp and does have some nepotism going for him, which we can always agree. Going to help out anybody in any walk of life. D. Nor here in this spot in the 6 hole. Kelsey, Henry, Jacobs. That is another. I mean, I'm a running back pig today too, so I guess I can't judge him that much, but we're going to try to dig out of our running back hole coming up and go heavy at receiver. But a lot of zero RB teams here. We got MC Goldrick in the 2 hole going zero RB. So far, Short Gamer, E. Coxer here. R. Ritter, not D. Ritter, not Desmond Ritter here, drafting some teams, hopefully not with himself. All right, we're on the clock. Oh, God. See, this is the part of it. This is the part of it that really stinks, is that you end your running back run, and then you go to Deebo Samuel. You know what, guys? Let's live a little. Pure hyper fragile running back build. Play the GIF again. I am a pig. I'm disgusting myself. This is everything I don't believe in, but it was bound to happen here. We're doing more streams. I have to draft some different stuff. So I'm a running back piggy here. I'm going to fucking make a snout for myself. You can see all my boogers. I'm bringing shame to my lineage. My son is at daycare right now, and he feels a chill going down his spine because he knows that his father has betrayed himself. But it's half PPR and Underdog. Drafting running backs earlier more valuable than drafting receivers, not full PPR. That sort of doesn't matter with how I view the position. My bet against running backs is more about the macro of it all. I know, again, I've talked a lot about Sam Sherman on the ADP Chasing Show. I think he makes the best case for why running backs are valuable in an Underdog format in terms of the spike weeks and all that stuff. But that said, with the injury risk, with the fact that running backs are getting less and less touches year to year, the fact that receivers are getting more involved, the tight ends are getting more involved, overall, that just means that running backs are not the same commodity that we've known in the last decade, let alone the last 20 years. So again, my thesis last year was that no running back would get 25 touches. Nobody got even 24. This year, I think it's going to get closer to maybe less than 5 guys that get over 20 touches. So if that's the case, running backs just aren't the same play regardless. So it doesn't matter about half PPR, full point PPR. Like, that's my belief about running backs and how it's going right now. All right, so we got Atlanta. So let's get Drake London here. And now we will desperately try to dig out of our running back start. We'll not hit running back for a while. I could even close out the running backs here if I wanted, but I'm not going to do that. But point being, Drake London here going with Bijan. We're making a bet on Atlanta. I don't mind that. And actually, after making the joke about Ritter here at the 112 hold, not drafting Desmond Ritter, might be a time for me to draft Desmond Ritter this draft. The peasants rejoice as Spags gives the fans what they want. You are the people's champ. Thank you, Dustin. I'm sure the people are dying here. The T level's off the charts. I'm a running back hog. Proud of me. There we go. Yeah, got to draft different teams, guys. That is the one thing I say. I can believe whatever I want. I can push back on the running back early thing as much as I want as well. But ultimately, if you are drafting 150 entries in a Best Ball Mania and a DraftKings Millie Maker, all that stuff, you got to make sure to actually get some different configurations. You can't just play the hits over and over again. And I think that's one of those game theory things too, that maybe you can play the hits. Like maybe if you just draft 150 zero RB teams in a year where nobody's drafting one, maybe that's the way to get different and give yourself enough looks to get out there. For me though, it's like, I know I'm drafting majority zero RB. I know I'm drafting majority anchor RB, if not that. So you got to get some different looks in for yourself if you're trying to be responsible with your portfolio. How many hyper fragile builds do you have? I would guess less than 10, probably closer to less than 5. It's not my preferred way to draft. I like having star wide receivers in the room just for that upside, just for the fact that I believe a lot more, again, in the macro of it all, of receivers getting more routes per game, getting more targets per game, all that stuff. Certainly, I know that there are a lot of spike weeks that come from the early running backs, but you can make a case against all of them, like Christian McCaffrey, we're going to point to here. Elijah Mitchell was lurking there. Tyrion Davis-Price has been looking pretty good in camp. Jordan Mason's been a guy that they like. McCaffrey has an injury history. What if they just give touches to those guys? That means that McCaffrey has less overall spike weeks. Sure, he'll have a couple 30-point games here and there, but what if week to week you're getting 15 to 20 from an Elijah Mitchell or a TDP, or you're getting enough of those to add up? That's a thing with those running backs that they can point to. Same thing for Eckler, as we talked about, getting older, different offense, not going to be as much of a check down offense as it was last year with Joe Lombardi as the offensive coordinator. So that's the kind of thing for Eckler. You can nickel and dime a little bit. And then if they start to give touches to a Spiller, I don't know if that makes Spiller himself a viable play, but it does make Eckler less of an upside play. Bijan, I think Atlanta's going to run 30 times a game, but if Bijan gets 18 touches and Tyler Algier gets 12, or 12 with Algier and Patterson and whoever else they have left in the running back room because Huntley's not available. That's the kind of thing with Bijan that would hurt him too. So that's the case I think you can make against a lot of these running backs. Barkley, same thing too. Guy wasn't that efficient last year. If he gets less touches, it's not going to be there. That's every running back to me, is I think you can make this case against them. Whereas receivers, like, yeah, if they go 10 for 150, like you won the week, or you had a really big chunk away in terms of chipping away at the leaders in your pod. So that's why I prefer receivers personally. This will be the $3 million team. I hope so. I would love to stream a $3 million team. Like that would certainly be a lot of credibility for the game here as we try to build Splash Play up to 3,000 subs. And of course, do appreciate you guys hanging live. I know there's a lot of competition out there right now for your stream hours. So anybody who hangs out here on Splash Play, genuinely appreciate you guys being here. But if you're watching after the fact too, I know a lot of people have been watching later on at night. I've seen some comments coming in at like 1, 2 a.m. So if you're binge watching at night, catching up, I appreciate that too. Whatever way you're getting my draft streams into your life here on Splash Play, I appreciate it. I enjoy you guys hanging out with me here. A lot more anchor RB starts this year compared to last year. I mean, I'd have more than I certainly would have wanted to. I think that's though why to me zero RB gets more appealing, just because of the fact that even guys who have been so staunch about it are now not willing to do it just because the ADP is moving around. And if that's the case, and if you do have this sort of entire class of running backs just not being as valuable, or even not being as valuable relative to the guys going at the 100 range, like what if Devin A. Chain's a world beater? What if Miles Sanders is a world beater even? What if Dobbins is? There's a lot of ways that I think running backs can add value to your lineup without being taken in the first 3 rounds. So that's more my overall thesis. And I think too, just getting different from all these drafters who now feel a lot more comfortable taking running backs early. That's the way I would sum it up, is that if everybody's drafting one way, sometimes the benefit could just be drafting differently, but still within a way that, the data points to is having value. Like zero RB still, data wise last year obviously looked very good. But the year before too, it's, it's different pockets and all that stuff of ADPs, but a lot of merits to it in the data that I think has kind of gotten lost in the sauce with the running back ADPs moving around this year. But we'll see what we do next. Obviously would prefer it to be a receiver. But of course it's all dog shit receivers left. So we are crushing. All the guys I hate today will be adding to the team. Deontay Johnson. Oh, Christ. I really... The good news, guys, is I'm going to get to the Fields 8% of Deontay Johnson. The bad news for me is I'm going to get to the Fields 8% of Deontay Johnson at a mid-50s price tag, but we got to get receivers in. Doesn't matter which receivers they are at this point because we just want some upside at the position. So Deontay theoretically has it. He has the volume, if nothing else. Pickens, though, got to tell you guys, feeling pretty good about those Pickens bags. One viral clip of him mossing a dude, and watch that ADP start to come up, even though a lot of great signal, too. Really good Athletic article talking about how basically they're expecting to be pretty run-heavy, and everything that they've done is run-heavy, but Pickens is saying they're going to be running the same plays, but targeting him more downfield. Pickett is saying the same thing as well about trying to feed George Pickens downfield and get him in a position more to get some yards after catch, which I think is a thing that Pickens should be able to do, but didn't do much of last year. So definitely something with Pittsburgh that this might be a spot to take a full Pittsburgh stack, actually, just because I'm so low at receiver that I think making a concentrated bet on a stacked offense could be the way to do it. But we'll see. I think I'd have to reach for Pickens if I'm going to take him because he's not going to fall to 81. We'll figure it out, though. That's true. I am brand new to streaming. I am just starting out here. That was sarcasm, by the way, in case anybody doesn't follow that. I've been streaming far too many teams for far too long, both this year and in general. But streamer life is just adapting to the various rooms. That's what we know. It's all we know here. If you are going to stream your best ball drafts, or you're trying to do this out there, be prepared to have some shitty teams put up. All right. Good God. Good God. Can Pickens fall back to me at 81? I just don't think so. I don't like Mike Evans that much. I don't think any of these other guys are doing a lot for me at this point. I am going to go in the way of pure upside here and take Pickens and make my bet on Pittsburgh. Again, really think that the logic behind this one for me is that I like having superstar talent at receiver. Like I like having the Jalen Waddles, even if you're not going to get your Diggs or your Tyreeks or your Jamar Chase or your Jefferson. Obviously, those two guys you're not always going to get or have available to you. But if I'm not going to have studs at receiver, I want to make a bet on an offense that can really beat it. And that's something, too, where we did research at Football Outsiders a couple of years ago, looking at sort of what really meant, what was the driving force behind good best ball teams. The driving force is having a QB like a Pickett who then raises the entire ceiling of his whole offense, especially at ADPs, too, where like, Deontay Johnson, I think, is a little high for him. But Pickens could be a round 2 receiver next year. Like that wouldn't be a crazy thing with him being in his second year, as a player, and then him also theoretically ascending a little bit more as a guy who was very good in advanced analytics last year in terms of EPA numbers and DVOA numbers. So I think to me, making a bet on one offense, if not 2 ascendant offenses, would be a good thing to do here. I guess I could. Well, we'll see. Let's see what we get back. I think I made the right choice for me, but there was another choice on the screen that I think would have been logical to hit as well. How are the 0 RB guys doing? Short Gamer going pure 0 RB here. So he, I would think, will probably take maybe one more receiver. Well, I guess it depends how he handles his next round. But I like this build here from Short Gamer in the 10 hole. AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Christian Watson, Kittle, Michael Pittman, of course, the great Michael Pittman is what we call him here in his contract year. But an interesting team there. I think this is the kind of build where I would tack on one more receiver and then be done, at least until like the 15th round or on. But I think that's the kind of 0 RB build where he is getting different from a lot of people by just being willing to eschew every running back to start here. Whereas I, of course, went the other way and said, no, I can't imagine life without a running back. And I took Bijan, Chubb, and Breece Hall. But damn, we are covered for week 17. If that Jets-Cleveland game becomes a runoff, we are really going to be feasting here with Breece Hall, and only to get vultured by like Michael Carter or Izzy Abani Conda. Nick Chubb gets vultured by Jerome Ford. That'll be the tail of this lineup, I'm sure. Who's on the board? Kyle Pitts fallen. Waller's there. Waller, a guy I do expect to rise in the next few weeks. Feels like he's got a pretty good ADP breadth right now where he'll get picked sometimes in the 60s. He'll get picked sometimes in the 80s. But Waller, I think the drumbeat, once people catch him on the news items, And just the fact that he's been good in training camp every day. Waller's just one of those guys who's done it before that like is a little bit older, which makes guys like me not like him quite as much. But I think for the casuals coming in, they're going to see Waller. They're going to see the athletic articles or whatever their local beat reports in New York are. And they're going to go, holy shit, I need a lot of Darren Waller. And I think that's going to steam him up. You think Weekly Winners or BBM won't fill? They both seem behind pace. I would think Weekly Winners is a better shot of not filling, would be my guess. I know for me, I've said it on here. I tried to draft a couple Weekly Winners, but the wait was just too long for me because I'm doing stuff and I can't just sit around waiting for it. There goes Waller at 77. But I think Weekly Winners just doesn't hit the perfect notes here. I think Weekly Winners would have been better folded into a BBM somehow. I don't know how you do that. You have to raise the entry fees maybe, or even raise the pool of players. But I think that's where that format has appeal is like, okay, your best ball team is dead in terms of winning in week 17, winning millions of dollars, but you can win $20,000. Like, I think that's a sales pitch for people, but it's not one that they hit. So I think Weekly Winners is maybe a good idea, but one that's struggling a little. Kyle Pitts falling was what I wanted. So that works. Would love to keep hammering receiver, but I think with a bet on Atlanta here, so we're going to make concentrated bets on young offenses. We've got Atlanta, we've got Pittsburgh. I think this is the kind of way to handle not having receiver early, while still giving yourself some upside. So feeling good about this. I don't love the team construction in general doing it this way, but I do think the way that I'm handling this feels about as good as and comfortable for me as it can feel. Your BBM entries also just start skyrocketing in August. Like, that's how that goes. So that's definitely something I would expect there. I don't think there's going to be an issue filling BBM. It's just like when there's $3 million on the line, like at the end of the day, when it comes to a tournament filling or not, that much money and that the fact that BBM is filled now for multiple years in a row, and also best ball's hotter than it's ever been in terms of like people actually being interested in terms of casual consumers. I don't think there's any way BBM wouldn't fill. But Weekly Winners, though, it's like, I think they've pushed people's bankrolls a little bit too hard. Personally, if I were to give Underdog critique, it's like, I think that's you're asking a lot of people here. You're asking people to be playing like DFS players. Like, even for me, like, you know, I would spend when I was playing NBA every day, I would spend probably 10K a month ish, you know, at least investing that, or being willing to invest that much in terms of bankroll. And I think that's what Underdog is getting to. And it's tough when, you know, you can't see that money materialize until January. We're on the clock here though. Correlation wise, nobody coming up who makes sense. Treylon Burks, though, or Treylon, I guess we're going to pronounce his name correctly, does feel like a guy who still has real upside. So we'll get another young guy in, and that's construction stack and young guys who maybe still have a ceiling left in them. I think that's the one way to bail yourself out if you are going to be a little running back piggy like I was here, taking 3 in the first 3 rounds. But it's a thought exercise, if nothing else. GM, I could see that Pete's stream must have ended here. But appreciate all you guys coming out here, of course. If you're hanging out for the first time or if you are coming back and you're not subscribed, please make sure to subscribe to the channel here. We appreciate it a bunch. On the march to 3,000 subs on Splash Play. And frankly, you know, it's just me and Pete obviously coming in once we do the streams. But this is a one-man shop, basically, of this channel. And we do more views. We get more engagement and all that stuff than a lot of actual companies out there. So I really appreciate you guys being here. But subscribing, helping us continue to build these numbers up would be great, especially as Splash Play is now a free agent show. Because I'm not going to keep plugging us. The company hasn't paid me in 3.5 months. So that's where we are. That's the real talk for you. Shout out Fantasy Football Garage, of course, another creator out there doing good stuff. Always support your creators. Tip your creators out there. And your waiters. Definitely tip your waiters. All right, so my team so far, I'll read it out loud because I've not serviced the audio listeners yet, even though I'm not actually posting these to the podcast feed. This is YouTube exclusive, all these extra feeds we're doing here, or streams we're doing on the Splash Play channel. Bijan, Nick Chubb, Breece Hall at running back. At receiver, Drake London, Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Treylon Burks at receiver, and then Kyle Pitts at a big old ADP discount. I guess maybe because he's hurt and a little bit slow to start in training camp, but Kyle Pitts, a guy that I have not taken a lot of. I was one of those guys who was led off the cliff by Kyle Pitts last year, and I'm willing to go back there if he's going to be in the 80s. Like, I think Kyle Pitts, a young guy who has this elite pedigree and had the best rookie year ever at tight end, him going around, you know, basic journeymen like Darren Waller and Evan Ingram, I think that's a pretty good value for Kyle Pitts if he's going to fall in that range frequently. I'm not going to pull up your chat copper prices, but yes, fuck the people who are not paying us and also now not communicating about not paying us is not my favorite in the world. But Neither here nor there. Either way, that's why your likes really matter a lot. When you don't have dollar bills, likes are all you got. Likes and subscribes are all you got. Got here late, so I'm watching on delay, but at least I got to see this emote again. Running back pig, yes. Of course, if you are a member here on the Splash Play channel, not only do you get the sweet emojis that Port's popping in the chat here, but you also get me reviewing up to 10 teams a month if you want to send them to me on Twitter or, of course, on Pete's Deposit Kingdom Discord. However you want to get it to me, just get it to me somehow. But happy to review your teams, happy to give feedback if you're doing slow drafts and stuff. Definitely willing to give you guys whatever you want in terms of value. If you're a creator, you want me to check out your articles or your stuff too, your streams. I have checked out some articles for people. Happy to do that too. Whatever I can do to add value to you guys. If you're helping subscribe here on Splash Play and joining the channel, let me know. If you're giving me $4.99 a month, I can give you probably more time than that $4.99 is worth. but I care. I care. Dalvin Cook goes to 93. Dalvin Cook. I was outwardly flirting with the Jets on social media now, posting green hearts if Aaron Rodgers says anything publicly. I know people want to see maybe Cook still upset that Miami backfield, but if he doesn't go to the Jets, like I don't know where he's going to go. Like he's going to go somewhere where the running back gets seriously hurt and it's kind of a boomer team. I think would be the saving grace for Dalvin if he doesn't go to the Jets, but just really weird for a guy to be that public about the flirtation. But I guess Hopkins was too. So maybe that's just like the new playing card here for guys who are a little bit older, a little bit less value in terms of the contract. They have to go out and earn it and have to go out there and flirt their way, to success. Oh, we're reviewing meat picks. Oh, yeah, of course. That's a weird thing that I know that people do that. Like there are women who do that on like OnlyFans where guys send their dicks and the girl has to review it. I don't like, honestly, I guess I could review dicks. I don't know what feedback I'd give. I'd go like, it could be a little longer. Like, I don't know. Could use some more girth. Bit of a chode you got there. Too much girth. That's what I would say. All right. On the clock. Got some followers here, which is a positive because we are desperate at receiver. Bateman, Kadarius. I have enough Kadarius. I should get more Bateman. Bateman doesn't fall this often, so I will take Bateman here. Rare 11 ADP pick discount here on Bateman. So this team is doing what I think it needs to do. I have to say, I do hate the hyper fragile builds. I do hate going that much running back capital early on. But if I'm going to do it, like this is not a bad way to do it. It's not a bad way to do it. Got young guys, got guys after ADP. That worked out well. It's really just this Tyler guy and his love for meat. Most of us are well adjusted. Look, whatever gets people off out there, I don't know. And if it's one of your preferred fantasy football streamers out there and reviewing your dick, then who am I to tell you? Who am I to yuck your yum? I don't want to yum your yuck. Who am I to yuck your yum? Samaje Perine not getting the fall that you would think is coming his way with Javonte Williams getting a little more healthy, a little more popular. But that's definitely something where I'm surprised by that, actually. But maybe more of a DraftKings thing where Perine falls. Because, again, they are a bunch of little nervous Nancy's over on DraftKings. We're going to find out tomorrow. My first streamed DraftKings draft of this offseason. But I will finally buckle up and do it here after. We did a few last year, and one of the teams that I drafted on stream was a finalist. So maybe I should have been streaming more DraftKings drafts all along. At least you got running backs in yours. James Cook is my RB1. Jeremy, that sounds like my dream team. That sounds like the kind of thing I would love to have. James Cook, and then you go on a run, you get your James Cook, you get your Charbonnet, or your Dillon, or your Perine, or your Rashad Penny. You get your Khalil Herbert, or your Roshan, or your Foreman. You get some A-Chain, maybe some Mostert. Boy, it's like ordering on DoorDash. All the hits here that I want to see on my plate. All right, on the clock again. We are now extrapolating pretty good value, I think, at receiver. So Jameson Williams, another young guy, tough camp for him, playing like shit at camp, getting in fights, obviously suspended for 6 games as well. But if we're trying to dig out of a hole at receiver with really good running backs on paper, Jameson Williams is the kind of guy that I do think fits the criteria of how you would want to hit the position. So yeah, that works. Jameson Williams works. I can't even squeeze a drop without Spags say so. Oh, good. I'm glad to be. I really hope that I can be a dominatrix for straight men who love fantasy football. That's That's the dream, really. Honestly, whatever way you can monetize your career, more power to you. How am I Williams versus Brown bags in Cincinnati? I'll tell you, boy. And this is just BBM. This is my 107th BBM draft. I have one entry of Trayveon Williams, 19% Chase Brown. So I am team Chase Brown, though the beneficiary, though, at least right now, of Williams going down is going to be Chris Evans, who is the one that kind of hovered around last year, was the guy that people thought would be the backup there / the third down pass game back. One really nice camp report, though, from Chase Brown, which makes me feel less bad about my bags being so heavy for him. He was compared to Austin Eckler by, I think, Albert Breer at SI was comparing him there after going to the Bengals camp, and he heard that from one of the coaches. So I think there's some positive signs for Chase Brown. Obviously, Trayveon Williams going down sucks. Like, this is his best shot to actually be a player in the NFL, so it's always hard to kind of compartmentalize that stuff. But Chase Brown is like live. Chase Brown is I think, live to win that role. But it is probably going to be Chris Evans to start the year at the very least. Because it was actively like they had talked to the athletic reporter, I think, in Cincinnati, and it said, hey, like, you know, it's a competition between Trayveon Williams and Chris Evans for this pass game role. But basically, Chase Brown is like the mix and handcuff, and then he can possibly get into that hunt now that Trayveon Williams is hurt. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to get too enthusiastic for Chase Brown because I feel like my bags are kind of packed if I'm going to have almost 20% of him. But if he's going to go in like 200 or whatever, I mentioned it yesterday, but he's a guy that had like an ungodly amount of touches per game in Illinois. I'll actually pull that up for a sec. But Chase Brown, 29.8 intended touches per game in Illinois, was not the most efficient with them, was a negative EPA per rush guy, but was pretty good catching passes. 0.139 EPA per rush. Not great in the red zone. Would like to see him be better with that stuff. Not great. Actually, no, he was good in the red zone. He was bad against 8-man boxes. But 0.298 EPA in the red zone, that's a positive for Chase Brown. Point being, though, I think Chase Brown is the guy to want the most. But in terms of an early season role, it's probably Chris Evans. And that's my talk. Boy, you're not going to find a lot of streams out there that dig deep on the pass game role for Cincinnati and how it relates to fantasy at that much length. So I hope that added value to somebody out there. But obviously, I am very biased for Chase Brown. I am rooting for that man very much. Slick Rick going on a receiver run. Did he go running back early? Interesting usage of capital by Slick Rick. 2 running backs here, second and third round. Gets an elite QB. No more, though. This is one of my big takes, is that I think Fields without Moore is a mistake. The way that Fields takes the leap this year is going to be with DJ Moore being a true alpha target earner. And I'm not like the hugest DJ Moore fan. He was on my finalist team last year and did a lot of good things overall, I thought, but still wasn't like great analytically. But still, like, if you're making a bet on those guys, I do think that he's part of what you want to make the bet on with Fields. On the clock, though. All right, so we got a 0-3-6-1. We're just not up for any of these guys at receiver yet. I am going to take a 4th running back here then. And add in Jalen Warren. We are going full non-Najee Omega Pittsburgh stack here. So I'm just going to put Pickett in the queue. You guys know I want Pickett. It's pretty obvious I want Pickett, but I'm going to put him in here so I remember to take him at a time frame where it makes sense. Because if I don't get Pickett in this lineup is stupid and makes no sense. Chase Brown is the truth, and he's Canadian. I actually didn't know he's Canadian. But yeah, like, anytime you see that kind of volume in college, like, it wasn't good volume. It wasn't, but it's not going to be good volume doing anything at Illinois, I would say, for the most part. But definitely the kind of player that, you know, people get obsessed with, like, target earning and all that stuff. Just running backs sometimes showing that they can handle 20 touches a game, let alone 30 touches a game. That's the kind of thing that I think does matter for the pros. And Chase Brown had a great athletics profile as well. The RAS score and all that stuff looked pretty good for him. So I think that he's certainly a player that I have no issue with. Did Devon A-Chain get a apostrophe added to his name recently? I'm pretty sure I've been drafting Devon A-Chain this whole time. And now here's Devon with the apostrophe. So I guess he must have made a note there. So I need to adjust our pronunciations here. Devon A-Chain, one of the lost Dudley boys. Devon A-Chain. Rashee Rice still going at a nice, reasonable price tag. Definitely a guy that's looking good in camp. He and Justin Ross, I think, if you want to get a really weird Chiefs stack, like let's say you get scooped, you don't get Kelsey, you get Mahomes, you don't get Tony. I still think Tony's a wide receiver 1, as we've mentioned. Rashee Rice and Ross, I think, is kind of a fun duo. Or Rashee Rice and Sky, like two of those three, I think would look pretty good if you're going to try to play the younger side of things, because they are both heavily in the mix, getting a lot of targets from Mahomes and so far in preseason. So I think that's a good thing for Rashee Rice. On the clock, though, what are we going to do at these other positions? We got our tight end. I think we're done at running back for the most part. Who else is bringing actual talent in? I guess this is just a pretty good value on Dobbs, and maybe I can add a third QB in here. Pickett and Ritter does feel pretty thin if I were going to go with those two guys at QB. So we'll see. Maybe we'll flirt with another QB. Dobbs, though, at a discount, I'm not going to mind very much. Like, he's going to be out there. I do think, the fact they drafted so many receivers, the fact that Jaden Reed's already been talked about a lot more than Dobbs, not great for Dobbs overall. And the fact that I think that Watson is so great, also not great for Dobbs. But in the games where Watson and Reed are going to be covered or not going off, like, Dobbs should benefit. So I think Dobbs is still a fine pick if he's going to start to fall a little bit more. I didn't like him going in like the 100 range like he was for a couple weeks here in the offseason, but 135 or so feels about right for Dobbs. This will be one of my more unique on-stream drafts, though. I will say that. This is definitely not the kind of team I normally build. But I still think, as long as I can get Pickett and Ritter, I still think this is a team that makes sense and kind of will be a good part of my portfolio. So that's what I'm mostly looking for here these days. Like, how do I add to my final 50 entries here in BBM and also my last 85 on DraftKings? How do I add to them and make them valuable? And I think drafting like this, drafting a little bit out of type, but still taking guys that I think have upside, I think this is the kind of build that I like. Caught a bomb over Jair yesterday. I think Jair is just kind of washed, to be honest, but that's fair. I mean, look, catching bombs. The fact that Jordan Love is throwing bombs, I think, is a very positive thing. Like, we've seen Watson hit some bombs, and they're not even allowing video at camp. So I'm not sure how some of those have gotten out, but they're giving up bombs to Watson, giving up bombs to Dobbs. Love, to me, is just one of those guys that I think people kind of fell out of love with for reasons unclear over the course of the offseason. But Jordan Love is like a guy who's as live to be a competent QB as anybody, I would say. Oh, it's Copper. Are you a Green Bay fan? Jair, I know people. Jair was like for a couple years there in DFS. He was like oh man, I'll show I know defensive matchups by saying you got to watch out for Jair Alexander out there. Boy, he's going to shut down that outside receiver. That was Jair Alexander's claim to fame. But for the most part, week to week, I will say that I tend to not worry too much about cornerback matchups. That is one thing that I think at the beginning of your time where you're starting to spend a lot of money on fantasy football, and even like PFF had that like a wide receiver CB tool and whatever. It's useful to know, I think, on a holistic level, but if you're making decisions based around it, like last year, Patrick Surtain versus Devontae Adams is one that stood out, where Surtain had shut down everybody, like all season long, like was basically killing everyone. And then Adams goes out there and has one of the biggest games of the year against the Broncos. That's how much individual cornerback matchups matter. It's more about the team scheme and all that. Though the Broncos also, team-wise were pretty good. And when Adams beat him up that badly too, that was when they kind of started to wane a little bit in terms of their enthusiasm playing for stupid Hackett. We can't be mean to Hackett, actually, because then Aaron Rodgers will come and bully me. Copper lives in Green Bay. So good. I hope you own part of the team as part of that, Copper. I hope you're getting all your equity coming your way because of the Packers' success with Jordan Love. Shout out to guy Bendels. Bendels streaming some drafts. I saw I actually have to catch up on that stream. Or was that today? The one with you and Mathology and Tyler, our boy Emo Cowboy. Well, I have to watch that one either way. If it's already gone on or if it's going on today, I will make sure to watch that at some point. All right, Jordan Love goes. So that guy knew. That guy knew what I was trying to do there. All right. What can we backdoor? This is a really big fall for Jared Goff, huh? Fuck it. We got Jameson Williams. There's our third QB, Jared Goff. I got to say, I like Jordan Love. Jared Goff should not go after Jordan Love in terms of what the expectations are for these teams and what the guy's role is. Like, I still think there's a chance that Detroit is not a world beater, and then Jared Goff, like, they have the out of going to Hendon Hooker next year. But Jared Goff is doing all the right things, saying all the right things, all the way they talk about him on the team, being a leader and all that stuff. Really looking good for Jared Goff. So I don't think this is the move to let Jared Goff fall this far. Why do people talk about aiming for one match in week 17? Are the winning team's points correlated with the losing team's points? Yes, they are. In fact, the biggest correlation you'll find in a game is going to be wide receiver 1 versus wide receiver 1. If one wide receiver 1 in a game does better, the odds are the other wide receiver 1 does well. But the whole point, Pete did a really good video about it, but week 17 is the most important week in best ball and for anything you're doing fantasy-wise. So I would say to keep that in mind. All right, so Laporta goes. I would have considered letting him go. To me here, instead, though, I will just take Pickett and lock him up. I'm pretty sure Pickett would fall back to me. Not worth the risk at this point. All right, so the team so far, we got Goff and Pickett at QB. Really big discount on Goff. Running back, Bijan, Chubb, Breece Hall, Jalen Warren. Receiver, Drake London, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Traylon Burks, Rashad Bateman, Jamison Williams, Romeo Doubs, and a tight end, Kyle Pitts. Unique team. If nothing else, that's what you can always say. If you feel like your team is shit, it's a unique team. That's all you can say. But yeah, week 17 stuff for the question that John Stepp is asking. Like, I know coming in, it could seem daunting and you could hear people talk about that stuff. And I do think, I do a lot of the micro correlations where it's like, oh, I have a Tampa Bay guy. Let me get a New Orleans guy, because like that doesn't matter, I think, as much overall. But really, like a game stack of guys, read the Best Ball Manifesto by Mike Leone over at ETR. That's the thing I would say for anybody who's coming into Best Ball. Read that so you get kind of the holistic view on the data. But overall, the correlation between guys, game stacking, a week 17 game. The point is really when you're down to that field of 450 or whatever at the end in Best Ball Mania, is that you want to have guys correlated here, and then you want to capture the upside of like a Detroit-Seattle was the game a couple of years ago that was really big. Last year was Carolina-Tampa Bay that Pat Kerrane won on the back of. A lot of stuff like that is going to be the thing that makes it jump out. Yeah, happy to help, John. Honestly, I know we're going to get new people in here, and sometimes, obviously, I can talk about stuff and assume that everybody's on the same wavelength, but never be afraid to ask a question here in the chat. That is one thing I will always say to you guys, and you can disagree on stuff too. I know people really feel like the week 17 stuff, or there are pockets of social media that feel like the week 17 stuff has been overrated. To me, it's like you go through the numbers, you go through Chad Maschke's data. A guy has been accumulating a bunch of drafts and trying to figure out what the ownership is and what the tendencies are within Best Ball Mania. And I think he's been doing that on the Badge Bros channel on Pete's Deposit Kingdom Discord. A lot of people are not stacking enough, and definitely if they're not stacking enough, they're not week 17 correlating as much. So it is one way that can give you an advantage there as well. But the main things you're going to look for, double stacking your QB at least is always the move. QB with 2 receivers or a receiver and a tight end at a minimum. And then really trying to correlate then. And also, ADP stuff I mentioned too is always the number 2 thing. And then number 3 would be the week 17 correlation, I think, in terms of the order of priority of what you should always be trying to do. The second highest correlation with the highest QB is the opposing wide receiver 1. I mean, it's all wide receiver 1 based for the most part, which is something that I talked about here. Like, I know my pal Pete doesn't like to necessarily take the early receivers as much and worry about the week 17 correlation there. But if you're going to have like the big correlation, it's going to be, it's not possible to get these guys, but it's going to be Chase and Kelsey. It's going to be to a lesser extent Kelsey and Higgins. It's going to be Diggs and Juju. It's going to be, AJ Brown and whoever. I guess Marquise Brown will be the wide receiver 1 for Arizona if we assume they're full go. But that's the kind of thing where I do think you want to plan for it a little bit earlier. That's me. We doing another one, or should I head off to the gym? Good question. Good question. We're doing okay in terms of views. I should limit these to 1, but we'll do a double here. We'll do a double here. I got a new thumbnail, guys. Look at me. Whoa, I'm lost in the world of this draft board. But yeah, I'll hit a second one. Just to keep Jeremy from working out. I'll hit a second draft today. Tyler Lockett, the wide. Get out of town. That old man, he can't even grow hair. DK Metcalf, though, good training camp reports for DK Metcalf. Apparently, the safety blanket for Geno is how it's been going so far for him in training camp. So I still feel good about my DK Metcalf stuff. Week 17 is probably underrated by most. We are all just so far in the woods, we think everyone does it. That is absolutely right. The group think there that Dylan's talking about is very much a thing that I think can Could definitely be a thing that makes you feel like you're in a little bit more of a bubble than you should be. All right. This should be a hyper fragile team. Roschon is falling so much though. Ugh. Very tempting. But I need another receiver, right? More so. I'm just going to take Roschon. I don't love hyper fragile builds, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I think I can go to 5 running backs, and that's my comfort zone. I normally will go 6. Sometimes we'll go 7 if I'm going to a really thin 0 RB. But I think getting Roschon here with the bet that I have on Atlanta, I think makes more sense than anything else at this point. Because I didn't get any other parts of Chicago. So at least getting a running back that could sledgehammer in a couple touches. Is it likely that Roschon makes it in week 17 over Chubb or Breece Hall or even Jalen Warren? I'm not sure, but it's possible he can make a flex spot. I prefer to try to target a receiver making a flex spot, but I think at this pocket, it would have been taking Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed's okay, but I didn't get love. I don't know. Have I warmed to Bijan yet, Spags? I haven't tuned in for a while. I'm not warm to him necessarily. I think the issue that I run into with him is that I think he's just fancy Tyler Algier, and I loved Tyler Algier last year, but that's always my block for these guys. Like, I loved, Ramondre last year at the 90 to 120 range. I love Tyler Algier at the 150 range to 180 range. Bijan, if he's going to be just a better version of that guy, or Ramondre, if he's going to be himself from last year, I don't think is actually worth the pick they're going at. So that's kind of what I run into with my thought process with this stuff. But yeah, like, I think Bijan's a perfectly fine play. It's just that he is Tyler Algier, and Tyler Algier could be the one who ruins Bijan's here this year. Like, if Tyler Algier gets goal line work, that could be 10 to 15 touches going Algier's way. I don't think he's going to get 15 touchdowns, but like 10 to 15, like, goal line touches, let's say, over the course of a year that go to Algier. Like, that's something that I think really does materially hurt Bijan. So that's how I view that stuff. All right, Jaden Reed came back to me. So let's take Jaden Reed then. Sorry to whoever has Jordan Love. I think it's this guy, but you should have taken Jaden Reed earlier, would be my thought. Just gonna get a Packers stack without Jordan Love, is what I'm thinking here. Wish I'd gotten Laporta. How do you define a hyper fragile build? I hear that term thrown around a lot. I think the way that I would define it and the way that I would understand it would be that it's like 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds or so. I mean, maybe even the first 3 rounds. And you really don't add a lot to the position after that. You could add 1 or 2 more guys later. I would think the fact that I took Roschon and Warren might make this a little bit less of a hyper fragile. But really the point is that you're taking your early draft capital at running back and you're sort of letting that be what defines your running back portfolio. So you're not trying to add a lot of volume. For me, though, just because of the fragility of running back overall, I don't like taking 3 or 4 running backs. Like, I think the minimum I would do of any running back configuration would be 5, just because it's very easy for these guys to miss time. It's very easy as well to, for them to not have a high scoring week. All it takes is really the offense to get away from them and just start passing because the game script demands it. And then your running back's not going to get there. Obviously, for guys like Bijan or McCaffrey or whatever, Eckler, that should matter a little bit less. But because I believe so little in running back volume and the stability of that, I think that's why I always want to take a little bit more on running backs. But the pure hyperfragile would be like you try to take 3 early and then you just lay off position and maybe pick off 1 later on, 1 or 2 later on. He sniped me on Love anyway with no stacks, so he deserves it. Good. I'm glad we agree that this guy taking Quez in the 16th round is a wild move. SJ Blank has been quietly drafting a team with no laws here. He's unstacked everywhere. It looks like, he didn't get anybody with Trevor Lawrence. Took Jordan Love unstacked, though he does have some correlation with KJ Osborne. But yeah, SJ Blank here threw off a couple teams in the room. What structure do I shoot for most often? I personally am always aiming to get 5 running back or 5 wide receivers by round 10. I agree. Running backs are just on my brain now, man. I drafted a few. That's always the hard and fast one for me. 4 through 7 at receiver, 5 through 10 at receiver. I know Pete was talking a little bit on one of his streams about how he feels like it should be maybe a little bit accentuated where it should be like 5 receivers through 9 or something because of the way that the position works out this year. I just tend to think like if you're getting 4 receivers through 7, you're pretty good. 5 through 10, like that's just a must to me. But in terms of overall structure, like I would love to hit 6 receivers on my first 7 rounds and then just like lay off the position pretty hardcore. But that's the drafting style I like the most. It's hard to do that one and feel really good about it in some rooms though. So that's sort of the caveat here. But I've talked about it on the stream. Like I love the extreme zero RB stuff. And there's a lot of data that supports that as well. That if you search radicalized zero RB, you'll find an Underdog article from Hayden Winks. Actually, let me see if I can pull that up and drop it in the chat. Because that's one that I think really does inform a lot of what I've been doing this offseason. Where basically the theory is just that everybody drafts teams that are a little bit too comfortable, and the way to actually draft differently and have upside is to draft uncomfortably. So I would recommend anybody who's in the chat right now, check out this article I just dropped in from Underdog. But it's a really good day to take here on why radicalized zero RB, if you are going to go that route, especially this year, like could have even more potential to be completely explosive this year. I personally think, and this is player take upon structure, upon whatever. I think that the team that will win Best Ball Mania 4 this year will have Watson and Pickens and a radical zero RB build. I hope that's one of mine. but I think it's like something like that, where you're getting not just early receivers who are studs, but you're also getting a couple in the later rounds who are young and who could be like second-round picks next year. And I think that's something that would certainly be the case for guys like Watson and Pickens. All right, let's get our Ritter here. 3581, putting a lot of onus here on Kyle Pitts, but that's fine. See what these guys do. Do you need to take one more tight end? Obviously, a short gamer takes the now sexy Chase Brown. And we are going to hit one more draft here just because Jeremy asked. So I'll hit one more draft when we finish this one and probably jump right into it as well. Why did I make my last pick? Pretty sure anchor / double anchor is 1 each BBM. But that's the point to me, is that I think those teams, if you really were to do the work, it's still about getting through 16 weeks and then making it to the final. So that's the tough part with anything, is that, like the best team, like there's a lot of teams that theoretically could have outscored all the finalists last year. They just didn't make it to the finals. And I think the stars are aligning this year with just how nobody's drafting zero RB or pure zero RB, let alone this radicalized version, that I think this is the year where that can be a real outlier in terms of just cutting through the noise of everybody drafting kind of similar teams, or on a spectrum of similarities in terms of their teams. Think winning team will have one of Lamar, Fields, Herbert. It's possible. This is one of the hot takes too. I think it's going to be possible to have a team that can win it all with 3 late QBs and 3 late tight ends. I think would be a way that you can win it all, or even 2 late QBs and 3 late tight ends. But I think having that capital be later, that's another way too. Like zero RB is a way to get different from the jump as well. But having like eschewing elite QBs and even eschewing that middle of the pack QBs, but still getting good stacks and still correlating and all that stuff, I do think that's where there could be a little bit of upside. All right, so we just need a good tight end. It kind of seems like a classic Michael Mayer spot. He's not correlated with anything, but Michael Mayer, to me, just a tight end who I think can balance out Kyle Pitts, can add some stability here, some floor weeks, and also some ceiling weeks. So my final team, Jared Goff, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder at QB, Bijan, Nick Chubb, Breece Hall, Jalen Warren, and Roschon Johnson at running back. You can make the case that I could have gone 4 running backs here, but I would just prefer, even in a hyper-fragile or pseudo-hyper-fragile build, to get to 5. Receiver, Drake London, Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Traylon Burks, Rashad Bateman, Jamison Williams, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, and a tight end, Kyle Pitts and Michael Mayer. I like this team. Not as much week 17 correlation as I would have liked. Didn't get any Seattle guys. Didn't get any Dallas bringbacks for Detroit. Didn't get anybody besides Roschon here for a bring back to Atlanta. But still, I think this team has youth, has upside, should be covered, obviously, in the early weeks and throughout the season at running back. I think this is an interesting team. I will mark this team with an X, which I do, of course, to denote all my teams that I think are pretty good. No disrespect to the guys making the last few picks, but we are going to hit another draft here. Of course, use the promo code SPLASH, double your deposit up to $100 on Underdog. That is a great way to support this show as well as show Underdog that we are doing things and helping things out, but also to give yourself more money to play here. Obviously, $100 will get you 4 BBM entries. If you double that money, you're getting 8 BBM entries. So, wow, what a treat. That's how math works. Math. The more you know. Do I like Okonkwo? The addition of Hopkins to that lineup is not great for him. He already struggled last year when it was just Traylon out there with him. So I think the volume is a concern. The volume should go up because they do have Hopkins, but it's still one of those things that I think for him, it's tough for him to be as efficient as he was last year. It's tough to expect him to get more volume than he did last year with there being more mouths to feed. And there's also still some risk that Tennessee can fall apart. Like, this is a team built around exclusively old guys. So that's something that comes with a concern. But if Okonkwo is falling, like, I would take him. If he's at ADP, a little bit less confidence there. Excuse me. Jeremy wanted the extra draft. He's skipping the gym to go to do this, or at least putting off the gym. And here he is drafting the 9 hole. While I am in the influential 103. And hopefully one of Lenny or Motorboat will decide Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, those guys are overrated. Let Spags have one of them. That's what I'm hoping for. Less than 10 seconds before this draft goes off, so let's horror briefly. Subscribe, please. Subscribe to Splash Play. March to 3,000 subs, 5 days a week of draft streams. Tomorrow I'll be doing DraftKings. Friday, the return of Spags Stacks, but content going off here. That is my commitment here to you guys. And of course, these fuckers wouldn't let me get Chase or Jefferson. Oh, I don't want to do running back Higgy again. I don't want to do it. Let's see what we can do. No, because you know what? There's no chance Waddle would come back to me in this room. I don't take a lot of CMC. Oh, I'm the saddest man in the world to be taking Christian McCaffrey, but here we go. I'm a piggy. Snort. I love rolling around in mud and eating my own shit. Pigs eat their own shit, right? I think that's the thing they do. Make me into bacon. I'm a running back pig. Cooper Kupp goes at 4. There we go. Can Mike Strachan finally get something done this year? He definitely looks like the type that steps up. There's no room. There's no room for him to get out there. They still have, what's the other guy's name who's in that group? Fuck. What's with an A? They just have too many bodies. Like, they have McKenzie still. They have Josh Downs being added to the mix. What's this dude's name? Ashton Doolin. There we go. Still have Ashton Doolin there. It's a lot of bodies for an offense that, like, I believe in Anthony Richardson as much as anybody. They're not going to throw 1,000 times. We can't feed all these guys. So I think Strachan's just one of those dudes that if you get one big play every 4 games, that's probably the best case scenario for him. But no, I don't think he can make it on the field. Pittman in a contract year. Pierce is a young guy they clearly are trying to develop, who showed some flashes last year in a really shitty offense. Downs is a young guy who they're having room with Anthony Richardson, who also comes in with a great slot pedigree. They signed Isaiah McKenzie. Like, there's guys like that, I think, who don't have any sort of draft profile either. They just have such a narrow window to hit, where it's basically you have to be like Victor Cruz a couple years ago, where you just go off in the preseason and they're like, we can't keep this guy off the field. That's the one way you can beat out having a lack of draft capital. And I don't think Mike Strachan's going to have that. Injured Kupp does not fall here. Injured Kupp goes at 4. We are in a little bit of a wide receiver avalanche. Potentially, we'll see. Love Jake Twitch here, getting Wilson and Amon-Ra at the turn. Those are 2 guys that are, I think, really well positioned in terms of their age, the target opportunity, all of that. And I tweeted a couple days ago. I will, once I get off stream here, we'll put out my fantasy football take of the day, my player take about my exposures and all that. Maybe a Chase Brown one today. Maybe we'll capitalize on the injury stuff. And be gross, but a Chase Brown tweet. But Amon-Ra just really well positioned, I think. It's hard for a guy to beat Justin Jefferson unless Jefferson gets hurt. But Amon-Ra just strikes me as a guy that can do that if the team aligns and does what they're supposed to do and makes a step that Detroit is expected to make this year. We're on the clock, though. And, of course, there's nobody. Oh, how I hate taking running backs. My least favorite thing to do. I'm defeated. I'm wearing this hat today. I'll just zoom in real fast. This is a hat that got accidentally mailed to our house a couple months ago. And I've been wearing it today because I was like, you know what? Let's do something about it. Let's make this bread today with the Artisano Bread Company. I think it's a fun, ironic hat to own. I don't think I'm making any bread by drafting all these running backs today. I'll tell you what. Hate it. I hate drafting running backs. It upsets me to have to do this. Jonathan Taylor might be fucking not playing football this year, and I'm taking him. Okay. You know what? Let's just do the same thing. No, or should I reach for Debo? Should I reach for Debo? You know what? Let's build out a full Niners thing here. I was thinking about taking Josh Jacobs to kind of just do the inverse version, or a different version rather, of what I just did, where I got Breece Hall and Nick Chubb. I think trying to corner a market and running backs in week 17 would be a fun way to do that. But instead, I'll just try to make it more of a Niner stack and take Debo instead. Yeah, oink, oink. I'm a piggy. Why did I leave Barstool? Basically, they fucked me over in a situation where I wrote a blog, fat shaming Rihanna, and Dave was an asshole who was mad at me because I had slept with one similar person, and she came by the office, and then he held a grudge against me forever. And then I was like, this is not a place I need to be where this is my life. So I wanted to move to LA, and I did that after getting a nice, generous severance for them for me to not bash them publicly for all the bullshit they pulled. So that's the short form of it for our pal Copper Prices. But Dave, I have no issue with him, but he really a lot of like boy stuff there where it's like, oh, you slept with this girl, I want to sleep with it. And that was like literally what the first year in the New York office was, and it was very gross and depressing to be a part of. But that's the reality of it, guys. That's why I care more about bread companies now. That's why I only wear bread company-based merch. It's either bread companies, Anthony Richardson, or Underdog. So tomorrow, I will dust off my DraftKings hat and come here ready to play, ready to plug DraftKings for them to not give me any money at all. There we go. Our Loud Sean's kids. I kicked them to the curb. We're pen pals now. But yes, no, I did, of course, for anybody not familiar with Barstool lore, did decimate our fat guy production dude, who is a scumbag, by the way. For anybody who now wants the inside truth on that one, which, I don't do a lot of Barstool talk here. That guy called me an F-bomb at a bar, and the F-bomb, that's a gay slur. He called me that. And that's why I went at him. And I didn't say it publicly because I didn't want to embarrass the company. But there you go. If anybody wants Barstool lore, got called an F-bomb by a head of production, got had to deal with Dave being weird about Eskimo Bros. That is my Barstool experience. But I don't hold any grudges or anything. It just is what it is. And I fucked a dude up. I got a chance to fuck a guy up in one-on-one basketball on a live stream watched by 50,000 people. You don't get that very often in life. That is my athletic apex. Yes, Dave and also Jared Carabas, I think, was dating a girl that I was dating. Actually, I think the same girl. If I'm remembering correctly, if I heard correctly. I am good dog, and I'm a good dog. Bark, bark. Sounds like a fun place to work. And it was fun. Like, there's definitely fun parts. Like the podcast I did with Smitty and Alyssa Rose there, called Swipe Drunk Love, I think would have been a fun thing to keep doing. It was like a dating podcast or about, the kind of dating app culture thing. But that was fun. Did end up getting, the love from the company that it should have gotten, and ended up being a thing that went by the wayside. Another part of the reason why I left. But I love that Barstool represented, so I'll never be mad at like my time there. I had a lot of fun there. It was fun helping build that site from a sports blog. It's like what's now a national brand. So I have no ill will there. Like, frankly, if they wanted to like bring Splash Play in and whatever, like, I would be happy to do that because I think they desperately need fantasy football content. But I'm not gonna try to weasel my way back in at this point. Women have autonomy, Jeremy. Women have autonomy. But that was the weird part too of Barstool. Like, there definitely were people who were like into you because of the place, and that's a weird thing to unpack. I think for any guy in their in their 20s who's being developing and all that stuff, it's like weird to have the like pseudo fame that's not really fame. Like, it's not fame that matters. Maybe now more so for those guys, but back in the day, like, it didn't. Like, it was just fame in terms of being able to slide into people's DMs and stuff. But we are on the clock, and here's a chance to take All right. No, you know what? I was gonna think about doing the Moore and Fields thing. Somebody got mad at me the other day because I mentioned I want to get more of Moore and Fields together. But I'm building out Niners, and I do think if we're gonna take Niners, I want Brandon Ayuk, who is a beast of a receiver, a guy who the can't cover him in a phone book thing is kind of a cliche, but I think that's definitely what Ayuk is. So that's a player to me that I want to get as part of a Niner stack. Play a lot of online poker in PA and play against Smitty a lot. He's a whale. Smitty's a great guy. I have no issue with Smitty. He was a pal to me. I think always people can do more for you if they want to, but I'm not mad at Smitty. Another Philly area dad. Generally a good guy. There's a lot of people there I like Big Cat was always great to me. PFT was always great to me. I mean, can't bitch about everybody. Not everybody fucks somebody that I fucked. All right, on the clock. Damn it, I could have gotten more in Fields. Oh well. Kittle's not coming back to me, I don't think. So I'm just gonna lock it up. Right, because there's no Washington here. Yeah. Would have taken a McLaurin if he were around for one of these picks, but McLaurin not around. So we're just going to build straight Niners here. So the team so far, we've got McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Debo, Ayuk, George Kittle, full Niners alpha stack. And I do think for me, I talked about it a little bit I've talked about it sometimes in the past. Like the Bengals alpha stacks I had last year were some of my best teams. The one that I had with Burrow and Trey Lance was carried in part because I did have a lot of stacks of the Bengals there, or a lot of players on the Bengals in that lineup. So I think that's something for me that sticks. Burrow and Hurst was a combination I had a lot of last year that ended up pretty good. So the same thesis here is like you take a good team and you take a lot of the best parts of a good team. And I think it ends up working out. So that's what we'll try to do with the Niners today and hopefully get a discount on Brock Purdy. What's a phone booth? That's true. I guess they don't have those anymore. It's funny because I think Debo's the one who says that a lot about Ayuk, and it's like Debo never grew up with a phone book either, or a phone booth either. So I don't know. Maybe they watched Doctor Who. Debo Samuel seems like a big Doctor Who guy. Short gamer gets DJ Moore. Trey here takes Justin Fields. So no more in Fields. But again, I really do love that bet. If you can get it to a line, and today would have been the day if I weren't doing Niners. Oh, well. We'll live, I think. All right. See what's going on. We got Lockett, Godwin. Nothing too crazy here. I feel like this has been a pretty standard draft. Only thing that maybe a little bit stands out is Watson going at 36, but that's where I think he should go anyway. If Ridley's getting the training camp steam, Watson should be getting the training camp steam, I think. And it's funny too, Ridley here went at 25. Ridley's hurt now. So he had those great days of training camp and he already hurt his toe. So I think any sort of rise he made in ADP probably should slide back because that's sort of the risk point of it all. But whatever. People can take what they want. But loving more in Fields of the turn. Yeah, I think as long as it's not ADP reached, I think that's a good way to do it. I wouldn't reach for it though, because I do think it was pretty common early on. And that's one of the biggest lessons I had this offseason. I know somebody, I think Chipsy, our boy in the chat at one point had echoed it, but I didn't take Miami double stacks sometimes because it was so prevalent. Everybody had it. And now it's you really got to get lucky in a room to get a Miami double stack with Hill and Waddle. Same thing for Moore in Fields, where a lot of people were getting that early on and it was just aligning perfectly ADP wise. And now it's a bit of a stretch to get there where you either need somebody to fall a little bit or you need to reach a little bit to get those guys. So that is the one lesson I think I would add to my list of lessons in best ball would be take the easy, obvious stacks in the beginning and don't even worry about ADP and whatever. Worry about ADP, but don't worry about where you're getting them and just get it when you can because those evaporate pretty fast. Dallas Goedert goes. A little bit early for Goddard. This guy has Hurts. That's why. Makes sense. Actually, this not a bad team. If you're going to take a couple running backs, not a bad team. All right, what are we going to do? Is this another Pickens team for me? We got nothing else Niners related. Certainly don't want to take another running back right now. All right, George. Me and George Pickens. What are my Pickens bags at? 20% Pickens. I don't hate it. He feels like a 20 to 25% play for me. I'm okay with that. Ridley said his toe was fine. His cleats were causing the pain, so he changed cleats. Yeah, maybe. I don't know, man. Guys who are coming, Ridley coming off and not playing a lot of games for 2 years. I still have like more than the field of Ridley, so I'm okay with it. I'm probably not going to buy him coming up to the mid-20s very much. Anything that comes up at this point for a guy like that, I think is a point of concern. All right, we're on the clock here. We got the elite running backs. We've got the elite tight end. This is such a fall for Miles Sanders, but I would rather get my fourth receiver through 7. So we're going to take Traylon again. Play the hits. And I would say the way that I can justify taking Pickens and Burks in 2 straight drafts when I really don't love to take the same players in 2 drafts in a row. It's one of the things for me that I think helps me get some different looks on my teams. These guys are just young and should have better days in front of them. Those are players that I think you can always buy into. Both Pickens and Burks showed something. Pickens, I'll pull up the numbers, but like his EPA and DVOA numbers were batshit. His EPA especially, 0.38 EPA per target, better than Justin Jefferson, I think, or at least in that range. And then Burks was, I think, not quite as good. Burks is a negative 0.1 EPA per target guy, negative 7% DVOA. It's on Tennessee, though, and he did get deep targets, got more than 1 deep target per game with a 42% catch rate, so that bodes well for Burks. But these are guys to me where it's like you want to get receivers in, especially if you take running backs early. Just take these guys who have a ceiling that we don't really fully know yet. Pickens, Burks, Quentin Johnston would be another one. Those are guys that I like. That I like, especially when you are, when you didn't get the early guys, you didn't get your AJ Browns, you didn't get your, Mon Ra's and Garrett Wilsons. At this point, you're just targeting guys who can potentially be in this range next year. And I think those guys, Pickens and Burks, fit that criteria. And I'm just a big Pickens believer. I've seen so much Pickens FUD on social media. And it's like at a certain point, guys are just beasts. Like maybe he is not Randy Moss, but like what if he's the closest thing we've had to Randy Moss since Randy Moss? I think that's entirely possible for Pickens. It's also possible for add more routes to his route tree. Like he's a stud athlete with a big pedigree from the SEC. Pickens is just a dude that I don't get. I don't get why people have turned on him over the course of this offseason, but people turn on everybody. So I get it. I get it on that perspective. That boy, like social media, you search any player name and you'll find somebody going, this guy sucks. It's like, oh, cool. Here I thought I had done my research and felt good about this guy and had the numbers and had all the data to back it out. But somebody on social media said he sucks. So I guess he must suck. That's showbiz. AR goes at 84. Love to see it. Got the nose fixed. Nothing holding AR back now besides general accuracy and timing issues. Working with the first team, though, he's going to figure it out. I think the way that things are going with camp so far for AR, I do think unless he keeps putting up shitty practice after shitty practice, things are looking good for him actually starting for week 1, which was a concern for me. It was not a concern for some people out there, but I think the market was a little bit worried about it, and I was too. Was just that it might be the worst case scenario of him not starting until after the Colts bye in week 11. But I think he's going to be going early. And I'm glad for his nose. I want all my players to have healthy, functional noses. I want them to feel good about their nose. And I don't want anybody taking their nose saying, got your nose, and then throwing it. I don't want that for him either. I want him to have perfect nasal capacity is what I'm looking for out of my players. Drippy Coda doing some weird shit. Double elite tight end. I guess if we're counting Waller as an elite tight end, which he's on the cusp. He's on the cusp. I like the team, though. I do like Coda's team. Wish he had gotten Watson at 44 instead of Mixon. I think that would have made more sense for him. But I like that team. All right. On the clock here. Nothing obvious correlation-wise. Really wish that Dotson had fallen back. Where did he go? Hey, whatever. I'm going to take a share of Cortland Sutton here just because there's nobody else I really want in this range. And we just took Bateman and Williams, and I don't feel the same way about those two as I do about Burks and Pickens. That was a gross pocket, though. I did not enjoy that. Really, I'm getting fucked in all the. I want to bring back for this Niner stack. Like, I want somebody from Washington, and nobody's aligning nicely at receiver, at least. Gibson will be here, but I guess we could take Gibson. 0-2-5-1. Nobody important for the Niners coming up. I do like Brian Robinson more than Gibson, but I think in this build, we'll say that this is a game script where the Niners are going to be playing ahead. Gibson catches some passes. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, that's a good point by Robert here. Sutton looking better with no Patrick rest of the season. It does feel like that means that Sutton's locked in. I think the biggest beneficiary of Patrick going down is Mims, just because like Mims now is nothing holding him off the field. But it does benefit Sutton, does benefit Judy to some extent. Just makes it easier for those guys to be there and not have to worry about coming off the field. So I think that's a positive for all of them. But yeah, that's a fair way to look at it for Sutton. I need some nose surgery, but after going there once, I said no thanks. But don't you want to be a supermodel? That's the question we all have to ask ourselves. To feed into the Deontay hate, I'm a 20% Deontay with an average ADP of 65.9. See, I think so. Deontay, I agree. If you bought the dip earlier on, if you bought him when he was a little bit lower, that was the wise move. I know I have some Pickens Deontay from that point. For me, it was more like I really needed to wrap my head around him because he was just so awful last year. Like I've mentioned some of the numbers here. He was like 85 at 85 in receiving DVOA. He was 81 at 85 in defense adjusted yards above replacement. So like really bad in those metrics. And this same offense that Pickens was really good in, those things stand out as bad to me. But that said, like I do think Pittsburgh's got to be better this year. Like if they're not better, Pickett might be out of runway. Matt Canada's getting fired. Like things are going to run bad for that entire organization if things don't improve for the offense in Pittsburgh. So that's why I'm buying in on Johnson now. Is like I've sort of come to peace with the fact that like he should be a part of what I'm doing if I think that Pittsburgh is an ascendant offense. But I just think that Pickens is the better player. I think Pickens passes Deontay this year in terms of his central role in that offense, even if not in terms of target count. Like I think he'll have more air yards. I think he'll have more fantasy points. I think he'll have more touchdowns. I think that's where I have an issue with Deontay, but Deontay can get there just by being a guy who gets targeted a lot and is due to run better in touchdowns. Part of me thinks we both may be disappointed with the Steelers as a whole. It's possible, certainly possible. They're one of those teams where it's like it's going to be better for them or heads are going to roll pretty fast. So I think that's it's a risk point. The thing to me though is like no matter how that goes for them, I just don't see how Pickens doesn't take a leap. Like he was already crushing with contested catches last year. I guess you could say maybe that's a little bit of a luck factor, but another year of him getting better and adding routes and all that stuff. And also just a better offense. Like it has to be a little bit better in terms of the offensive line and the run game, whether that be through like Najee being better or just giving Jaylen Warren more touches. All that bodes well for the downfield stuff. So I think that I'm still okay with the Pickens bet, but I agree that Pittsburgh is a little bit of a risk profile. Deontay going to the 80s at the start of BBM, packed a few bags on. Yeah, that's the way to do it. I mean, that's why Charlie finished top 3. He knows how to hit these ADP pockets. It's always a thing that's going to be important. And it's important, too, to identify these guys. Like, I kind of felt like Najee was appropriately priced in the 80s and 70s just because he was so bad in advanced analytics. But the thing that I have to come to grips with is that, like, I could see this stuff in advanced analytics and then use it to justify where a guy is. People aren't going to look at, EPA per target numbers. Like, I don't think the public has access to those numbers or cares about them enough. I'm lucky to get them through Sports Info Solutions, who's a great site. I would honestly recommend paying for it if you can afford, like, I think it's $200 a month. But like, people don't have access to that stuff and they don't care about it. They think a lot of people out there think it's bullshit. So they just see the counting stats and the fact that Deontay gets targeted a lot. And that's something that next year, again, another lesson I would take is that I want to be more mindful of like, okay, here's my take on a guy. That said, the public is going to fall in love with him a little bit more as we go. And timing those pockets out can be very important. We are on the clock, though. Got kind of boxed out for some things that I think would have been nice to do here. I think I'm going to take Jacoby Myers, and I'm going to figure out QB later on. But I want Jacoby Myers, a little bit of a bring back for Jonathan Taylor, and just think I could use a little more receiver depth at this point. Jacoby Myers never going to be a sexy click. Definitely not going to be a sexy click. Taking him 7 picks ahead of ADP. But just a guy who can give you the kind of game that he gave Pat Kerrane last year to win $2 million in the BBM finals. That's what Jacoby Myers can do. And I frankly have so much Devontae Adams that and also Michael Mayer, that I think Jacoby Myers, I need to probably have 6 to 8% of him. Gobber price is 22.6%, Warren an ADP of 141.8. I actually have to look up. I have to put my stuff in the Fantasy Life tool because I do think that's a nice free one to look at your exposure and all that. Okay, so this is a move that I was thinking about making last turn, and I am going to make it here. I'm going to take Daniel Jones and get some late Giants here just because I think I can maybe tack on a couple receivers at least. One of whom I would like to get more of, but we'll see how the ADPs align. But yeah, Warren, I know Warren is still very highly exposed for me. Let me refresh. Just BBM, 28% Jalen Warren for me, just BBM. And then with everything, 28.1% Jalen Warren. So I guess I've kept him pretty flat across BBM and other tournaments. But yeah, I like Jalen Warren a lot. I think he is, that's the issue here is like, Osmo used to say that a lot with DFS stacks is like, if the receiver is owned and, the second receiver is owned and has like the ownership projections showing those guys and the QB is not owned, like you should probably be stacking up that team more. That's sort of how I feel about Pittsburgh. It's like, I like Pickens. I like Warren. I like Freiermuth. I'm okay with Deontay Johnson conceptually. So like, if you think all those guys are okay, then the Pittsburgh stack looks pretty good. Going for a fatty SF stack. Yes, I'm going for the thickest of SF stacks possible. But we will see what we get with Brock Purdy, because sometimes he goes at weird ADPs. As we've seen yesterday in the stream with Pete, Brock Purdy didn't get drafted at the end of the draft. And then sometimes he goes in like 120. So I don't really know. I don't know when to grab Brock Purdy, but we'll try. Jalen Warren was going in the 190s in the big board. What a sweet time it was. Yes, I have a lot of Jalen Warren from that period. I've had Warren this entire offseason. So he's going to be one of my biggest bets. Like, I think it's him, Christian Watson, and Michael Pittman are going to be my 3 biggest bets. And it's to the point now, too, where I'm at 24% AR and just BBM. I've got 32% across everything because I did draft him a shitload in one of the puppies. But I've got 23.4% Richardson. And I think that my best ball season will not live and die by AR as much as it will Watson, Warren, and Pittman, which is a take, which is an island. Shout out Beachhead, shout out the chat. Appreciate all you guys hanging out with me. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do that right now. Beachhead is all about community. I know that from his comments over the years, and I want to know more about you from your comments over the years. So please subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to 3K subs on here. That is the goal. 3,000 subs before the season starts. Will it happen? I don't know, but Lord knows I'm going to try my fucking ass off here by doing 5 days a week of streams. That is my promise. And honestly, might sneak some more in here depending upon baby schedules and whatever, and how many entries I have to do, because I got to do. The DK draft tomorrow might be a marathon stream because I really got to hit a lot of DK drafts. But DK is just so fucking slow. 20 rounds of just a slog. But we'll do it. We'll do it and we'll have fun. We're going to make that bread, guys. Trey. What's Trey doing here? Trey's been drafting kind of a batshit team. Or he's got Chicago-Atlanta correlation. Very early running back. He's going kind of hyper fragile. All right. Looks batshit, but was not as batshit when actually scrolling through it. All right. We got 1361. Nobody I have to go out of my way to take yet. Though, you know what? I'm not. Let's just take Tank Bigsby. He should be, if not our last running back, one of our last running backs here. But Bigsby, I just like. Bigsby also should not be falling in rooms right now. Bigsby has been crushing in camp. I think he had 2 red zone touchdowns yesterday with the first team against the first team defense. Bigsby, like, I know people like ATN out there. I would rather have Bigsby 8 times out of 10 over ATN. David, I would take that bet. I think BBM will fill. It would be very difficult for it not to fill because basically they have these levers to like either pull or not pull for BBM, where it's like you could not release another tournament and then people enter BBM more. You can release another tournament, people enter BBM less. They know how to manage that stuff. So I just don't think that's possible. I would love for BBM to overlay. Like, I mean, it would suck for Underdog. I'm sure they'd be bummed. But, you know, like for us as users, if you're putting in 150 in the overlay, that'd be great. But I don't think it will. I don't think there's any chance of that. Mims up to 146, which feels kind of fair. I am going to take Tyler Higbee as a bring back to what we're trying to build out here from the Giants. So we got Daniel Jones. We got Higbee at a little bit of a discount. We now have two tight ends that we know have ceilings. I mean, both these guys had playoff ceilings last year that mattered. So I think this is pretty good. And then we'll try to get maybe a few more Giants in later on. Could have also taken Alec Pierce for another bit of Indianapolis, but I don't think that was necessary. There's going to be some wild teams out of the big board. I agree. I mean, I said it to Pete once on one of our shows that I think I'm very well positioned for big board because I have Dalton Kincaid, Musgrave, Laporta, and almost every lineup at basically 200, like in the 19th round in some drafts, 20th round. So I feel pretty good about my big board exposures. Didn't miss on some rookies. I didn't love Tank Bigsby pre-draft, but I think he landed in a perfect spot. Same thing for, I guess, Chase Brown, less so. But I faded also a lot of the guys that ended up with like kind of nothing spots. Like Sean Tucker, I think was really steamed up during big board times. Now maybe he'll end up having a role for the Bucs just out of them, you know, tanking away part of the year. But still, I like my big board teams. Definitely. And AR everywhere, of course. Anthony Richardson in every fucking lineup. Tomorrow for DK, I think it's tomorrow. Should I just go straight at 11? Because Pete doesn't do a stream tomorrow, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, just I would say subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know for sure when I go live, but it'll be in the 11 o'clock hour that I go and start that stream up. But yeah, I think either 11 or 11:30 tomorrow. But trying to keep it in that range, but like I'm realizing 11:30 just kind of puts me in a tough spot where like Pete's stream is still going. There's other streams going sometimes on like ETR or Liam doing shit. So I'm trying to figure out like what's a good window for me because I can't stream at night. I do not have the bandwidth to do that with being a parent and all that. Being a parent, being a partner. He's talking about Jaylen Warren. I don't think you're understanding how running back dynamics go. If you're saying that Jaylen Warren's a backup running back, he's a guy that actually got touches last year. Like Warren got 7 to 10 touches per game, but had more down the stretch. I don't know, like 7 to 10 touches for a guy who's the backup. That just means you're a back with a role. It doesn't really matter like what the nominal thing is. Like not everybody has to have 20 touches. They're priced accordingly for ADPs because the guy doesn't have 20 touches. That's the whole point of it. And you're trying to then run good on, you know, the touchdowns and all of that. Like Jamal Williams, the most extreme example of that last year where he had so much end zone work rather. But like still, you just like, I don't think viewing things as binary. He's the backup. Like that's how casual drafters on DraftKings view it. And it's like the wrong way to draft. What you want to be able to do is like when Najee doesn't get that touchdown, Jaylen Warren does, you now jumped a lot of people in both in your pod and in general across the whole structure of things. But yeah, I would say maybe trying to rethink a little bit about how you view running backs. I'm going to take Brock Purdy here. No reason to risk it. So we got our Omega here, Niners stack. Daniel Jones, Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Antonio Gibson, Tank Bigsby, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, Treylon Burks, Cortland Sutton, Jacoby Myers, and then a tight end. We should be done with Kittle and Higbee. Maybe one more in there for us, but that should be good enough. And now I don't think we're at luxury zone yet, but I do think we are in a good spot for picks where we can run some different positions. Probably not running back, though. Probably not running back. Back-to-back piggy starts. What a treat. Yeah, you're not going to see this from me very often, but today it aligned. We're getting different. What are you going to do? All right. On the clock, 2462. Couple different options here. I think... How many rounds do we have left? All right. I think this is a 3 QB build. Kenny Pickett. if Pickens gets there, Pickett's coming along for the ride. Pickett does rush enough as well. I think he's got some standalone value. Wouldn't take him unstacked or anything, but I think with this team, like we're starting our running back or QB run rather at 123. At this point, I think Jones is fringe to me, whether it's a 1 QB build or rather a 2 QB build or a 3 QB build. Pickett being here, me having Pickens, I think it's a Pickett build. Warren a standalone value plus serious contingent value, doesn't even need a Najee injury as he's better than Najee. That is a great way to sum it up, Charlie. That's a great way to sum it up. But yeah, I think that honestly though, like, and it's no slight to James. Like I know James is, I think viewing things a little bit differently than some of us here in the chat. So like, no skin off my back if James is not on the same page with us. But that said, like I do think that there is just sort of a way that we have viewed running back since we were kids, watching football, playing fantasy football leagues and whatever. And it's not the same way now. Like now it's all about, hey, what, like, can a guy with 10 really efficient touches outscore the guy with 15 plus, 15-ish, let's say, inefficient touches? I believe a lot more in the modern NFL and how things are shifting, that I would rather have the guys with 10 really efficient, high value touches. And third down roll is one thing, like bell cow rolls are easy to kind of pinpoint. It's like, oh, he's getting a lot of work. But like there aren't a lot of Nick Chubbs out there. There aren't a lot of guys getting a lot of work and who are great every time they touch the ball. I think you just want guys who are great when they touch the ball. Tell me where you think Fournette will sign somewhere and shoot up drafts, please. Seems like he's still looming for New England. Like he's in that Zeke, Dalvin Cook tier of guys that I think will be kind of loom as a threat for backfields that are underperforming. But I've said it enough here. I just haven't taken Fournette much. I haven't taken Zeke much. I haven't taken Dalvin much. Haven't taken Kareem Hunt much. Those guys are this year's Will Fuller. They are just the paper tiger out there that's lurking, that people are like, oh man, this guy had some good days for me in the past. But either they're not taking contracts that are worth, what they should be worth, or they're not even getting the offers because of that. Fuck, I wanted Jalen Hyatt to come back. Didn't want to take Jalen Hyatt at 171. Did want him at 190. But oh well, what are we going to do? What's up with Roshan falling? Roshan's banged up, so that's it. I don't know. He's banged up and he wasn't initially in the starting group, but that's not a surprise for a rookie. Roshan is pure Tyler Algier from last year, where it's like he'll probably be inactive, maybe the first game or whatever. But there's going to come a point where Roshan is out there, and when Roshan is out there, Roshan ain't coming off. Roshan is better than Khalil Herbert and Foreman in the things that they're both good at. Colts should probably sign one of those guys based on the JT situation. They signed some guy who sounds like a creative character. Starts with an S. I don't know, but I think they want to see what they have with Deion Jackson and Evan Hull. So I don't think the Colts are going to bring in one of those guys. I honestly, like, if I were running a team, it's going to be hard for me to get. It's going to be hard for me to pull this one off. If I were running a team and if I were the Colts or the Raiders, I would just say, all right, you know what? You want to hold out? Let's see what Evan Hull does. And like Evan Hull's another guy who analytically sound, Zamir White, another guy who's analytically sound, who on paper should be able to do some fractional amount of what Jonathan Taylor does or what Josh Jacobs does. I would just do it and push it to the extreme of what we think, what the league is starting to learn about running backs, and just see really what matters. Because I personally believe it comes down a lot more to the line play, comes down a lot more. Like the best analogy that I can give you guys is that Josh Jacobs, the year before last, good avoided tackle rate, relatively okay in terms of DVOA and EPA numbers. Then the offensive line becomes the top of the league team in terms of adjusted line yards last year. Josh Jacobs then is the best running back in the league. You know why? Because he had like the raw fundamentals and they made that team better. And I think that's what I'd be curious to see teams do, is like just push your chips in and see what you can do with the guys that you have. But we got a 3-4-6-2. Is Hunter Renfrow even worth drafting at this point? Is Tyquan Thornton even worth drafting at this point? I'm going to go Renfrow over Thornton. Really bad camp reports for Thornton. And Demario Douglas was playing over him in camp either today or yesterday. It's all blurring together from my article catch-up stuff. But either way, Tyquan's been really bad in camp. I think has not had a single catch in camp. So Devontae Parker is going ahead of him now. I think that's makes sense. But Tyquan at a one, Devontae already went at 190 with a 190 ADP. I think Tyquan's a guy I don't want a ton more of at this point, unless it's like at the end of drafts. Let's see what we get with this next pick here. Motorboat. When he needs to be in the splash play chat based upon what we know of these guys. All right. 3472. Is there anybody else who adds value to this team at this point? You know what? This is more of an 18th round pick. Allen Robinson is getting reps. He's out there. We didn't get Deontay Johnson in this one. We'll take Allen Robinson. Got the bet on Pickett. Drafted 8, grabbed Derrick Henry and Jalen Hurts. Your thoughts of drafting a QB early in the second? Okay, not in my draft. Hurts, I'd prefer more so if you are getting him with one of his pass catchers. So I prefer him with a Brown or Devonta. I certainly think that you're giving yourself a pretty good floor going with Derrick Henry and Hurts, but with Hurts, you still want to stack him up with something. This is a pretty aggressive offense that does pass at a high rate, and Hurts has standalone value, but all of his pass catchers are worthwhile targets. So if you're going to take Henry and Hurts, make sure you get Goddard at some point in your draft. Early QBs, though, I think are a little bit trappy. Early QBs give you a great floor and also a great ceiling. But the whole point of QB play is that you can get a similar game from, guys in the 16th, 17th, 18th round, theoretically, if things align and their offense is in a high scoring game and a shootout kind of game. So I think that I have no issue with taking Hurts, but make sure you stack them if you take them early. And then also, I think in general, if we're talking season long, especially, just trying to be mindful of the fact that you're going to get more value out of a guy that's a little bit lower drafted, and then him exceeding then raises the profile of his receivers as well. And obviously with Philly, that's all priced in. But appreciate the super chat though, Detroit Fitness Nerd, and I hope you come back. I think it's a new name. So shout out the fitness nerds out there. Stack Hurts with Allen. Yeah. Load up on elite QBs. Honestly, for a season-long league, you can make the case for elite QBs a little bit more for a redraft league kind of thing. In best ball, I'm curious to see who wins it all at the end. Because I think what it comes down to is are the people that you drafted, Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen, the people that you drafted over for those guys, are they going to be able to beat Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen, or be able to beat, the other receivers in this tier? And I think the guys we're looking at then are can Christian Watson have such a big game in week 17 for best ball that he would then knock out Hurts and Allen teams? I think so. So that's the risk of elite QBs, is that you're just not taking that receiver talent in that range, or I guess running back talent too. But for any team construction though, because QBs, any QB can score, 20, 30 fantasy points. It's just a matter of how that happens. And then too, if you get 20, 30 fantasy points out of Kenny Pickett, and not to be biased towards him, but you get 20 to 30 fantasy points out of Kenny Pickett, then you also got a big game from Pickens. You also got a big game from Freiermuth. You also got a big game from Deontay Johnson rather. That's the kind of thing that could really make it hard for an elite QB team to win, where you get pretty close to the value at QB, and then you also cut the parlay of the stack. So that's where I think I'll take the elite QBs and try to get as close to the 8% ownership that everybody's going to have. But I think that I think it's very possible for non-elite QB teams to beat elite QB teams. Jake, no worries at all. Hyatt's a riser, so I think you did a good job taking him. But I appreciate you even being willing to apologize. I think you definitely don't have to here. All right. Got a weird team. Slayton got scooped. Hyatt got scooped. Really nobody left here that I think makes a ton of sense. 18th round bet on Wandale doesn't feel that bad. All right. We'll do that. I was also thinking maybe I should get off the beaten path and take one of the Giants' backup running backs like Eric Gray, because that would be kind of fun, but we're not going to do that. All right, so final team review here. Daniel Jones, Brock Purdy, Kenny Pickett at QB, McCaffrey, Taylor, Gibson, Bigbie at running back, at receiver, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, Traylon Burks, Cortland Sutton, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, Allen Robinson, Wandale Robinson. These are the most receivers I've drafted in a team in a while. And then Kittle and Higbee at tight end. 3-4-9-2. Weird fucking team, but we got there. And I see we got a lot of people watching. You know what, guys? I'm easily convinced. We're entering another one. Here's your notice. BBM 4, $3 million to first place. I'm getting entries in here. I'm streaming it. I got to be smart, but I guess I'm not drafting Underdog tomorrow. Draft DraftKings tomorrow. Today, though, Wide open room if you guys want to draft with me. This will be a pure stream draft if you can get in right now. We'll do it. I got nothing to do today. Got to pick up a baby at 5. That's all I got. He's out of his mind. He's gone mad. Oh, there we go. He's going to lunch, but fuck it, I'm in. All right, guys. Let's fill this room. One more spot left. Who will join? All right, Dylan's in. Hope everybody got in who wanted to get in here. Because when I'm starting these drafts fast, it is tough sometimes to get in these rooms. But if you are ever trying to join a Spags draft, just enter 1 minute before the stream starts. That's the best way to do it. And here we go. I'm in the non-influential 11 hole. But this is good because I'll be able to get exposure to some guys that, and I won't have to draft running backs. I'm hoping here. I think I'll be able to go get some receivers, have some fun here. But hey, you know, if you enjoy impromptu streams here, if you enjoy people deciding they're going to stream for multiple hours when they thought they were just going to do one, subscribe down below. It happens a lot with me here. I easily give in to the peer pressure of wanting people to hang out with me and draft some teams. So please subscribe. 3,000 subs is the goal here on Splash Play, and we're going to get there one draft at a time. And of course, tomorrow, DraftKings draft somewhere in the 11 a.m. hour. I'll put it in. I got to make a new graphic because I do not have a DraftKings board right now in my Photoshop. We'll see. Should be a sharp draft here. I would think because there's going to be a lot of people who are watching the chat right now. I think this is going to be a little bit wide receiver heavy, but some names I don't recognize here. We got Peach Suplex, fun name. Toasty Ace over here. Renaud, the 5 hole. Z-Man. So this could be a wild card draft. We'll find out. And shout out to Green Check Mark, by the way. I have not given the shout out for the Stochastic Avatar. Hopefully I'll be back doing some stuff for them for football season as well. Trying to figure that out now that I've officially thrown in the towel on getting paid by Football Outsiders. Though not officially. I'm gonna file some things with the state. But yes, we'll figure out. Hopefully Stochastic will be doing some stuff with me for football season. No McCaffrey in this room. Pissing to start. And no Cooper Kupp fall either. So I've not been in a room yet here on stream. Sorry, Jeremy. Appreciate you joining me for the other one, though. And spurring me on to do more drafts. Nobody will click the thumbnail when they see that this is a 3-hour-long stream. But God damn it. I just love drafting. And I honestly love hanging out with you guys. Appreciate all of you who are riding out with me in the chat, whether you're participating or not. And of course, if you don't chat or if you don't talk in the chat, don't be shy. Like hop in there. I know sometimes I can be a little bit brusque to people who are in the chat if they say something that I don't agree with. But always looking for new voices in here. Always looking for new people to be a part of the community. So please don't be afraid to chime in here. No bad questions, no bad takes, none of that. Everybody's take is as valid as mine in August. We all know that. Yeah, Cup Hammy doesn't scare me. I don't think it should. You can worry about the overall accumulation of injuries and whatever, but when you're drafting players, you're drafting for them having the best possible situation. And then for that, guys who haven't ever been hurt in their careers can get colossally hurt. So that's the kind of thing that I think just removing injuries from the equation as much as possible is always something I would try to do. We are here in the 11 hole. Slight dip for AJ Brown. I'll take it. Ooh, my plan wasn't to do any BBMs this week, but I broke them. That's what I like to see. Let's break them. Let's broke pack mountain it. Nick Chubb, I would love to get more of, but I'm going to take Devontae Adams. No, am I? Should I take Waddle? No, you know what? I'm going to keep getting Adams bags. I'm fine with that. Thoughts on, I think this is Olave. I like Olave. I do think that Olave loses a little bit more to Michael Thomas than people are accounting for. Just him being a bit of a deep target guy who I think doesn't have the greatest route tree in the world worries me a little bit about Olave. But I do believe in the New Orleans offense. So I've been taking Olave. I think I'm actually pretty decently over the field with him, but I'll confirm that. 12% Olave overall. And 11% in BBM. So yeah. I think that's about right for me. Olave is not one of those guys that I'm like, this is the guy I'm going to make my season around. Like, he's not Christian Watson to me. But that said, he is a guy that should take a leap and should benefit a little bit from From Michael Thomas, just taking the tension away. But still, like, the upside's probably capped a little bit by having Michael Thomas there, by having that many running backs there, by having that many tight ends there, by also having Rashid Shaheed, who's going to be competing for D targets with him. And Shaheed was really good in a way that was baffling last year. I think those are all things that make it tough for Olave, but just he's so young. He's so young. Oh, he's just asking about olives. I prefer black olives, but honestly, both are fine. I didn't like olives as a kid, but I like olives now. I lived on Olive Street when I was in LA, downtown LA, in the Olive DTLA, which I would recommend not living in because they got new management while I was there, and the new management was so much worse than the old management by eons. So yeah, but did love living on Olive Street in DTLA. Downtown LA, I miss a lot. Miss it a lot. We got Cooper Kupp and Higgins for short gamers. So we got some other 0 RB builds here. We got some running back heavy builds. So good mix here that I think will keep the ADPs pretty much alive. Olives are gross. You are nasty. Look, can't agree on everything, guys. Olives also, like, if you eat a shitload of olives, not great calorically. Like, they're so high in fat and, you know, and good for you if you have a few. I mean, olive oil in general, good for you. But boy, you eat a jar of olives or something, and that's like a pint of ice cream. You don't want to do that. I knew Jake was going to do the Mark Andrews-Lamar here at the turn. Definitely a configuration that's going to be more duped than it probably should be. Doesn't mean there's any issue with it. Like, still do love the team overall, with Jefferson being your linchpin at receiver and Andrews, who I think has a very good shot to be the tight end one if there's any sort of backslide from Kelsey this year. I think that this is a pretty good start overall, but one that I think there's going to be a lot of Jefferson, Lamar, Andrews teams that are advancing into the second and, you know, the second round, third round, at the very least, you know, advancing. But it does mean you got to get different somewhere. And the tough part too is, like, I think the most potent combo with Mark Andrews and Lamar is going to be one of those Dolphins receivers, where if you get Tyreek with those two, you get Waddle with those two somehow. I don't know how you would at this point. That would be looking really good. But Jefferson, obviously, a different kind of uncorrelated lever with those two. All the elite QBs go in here. Mahomes, Hurts, see when Josh Allen goes. I'm sure DC Fantasy is hoping that Allen falls to him, but we'll see what these two guys do. You never know. There we go. Unstacked Josh Allen. Poor DC Fantasy almost got the Diggs, Waddle, Allen trio that I got for the first time yesterday on stream and felt pretty good about. But that's one that hard to pull off sometimes. Hard to force Allen back to you at the 32 spot. Joke's on Jake. I have Lamar Andrews on the 3-4 turn in BBMs. Wow, that's sick. I've not gotten a nice falling Andrews and Lamar once. That has not happened for me at all. I reached for them a lot earlier on in the draft, just because I identified them as one that wouldn't be heavily duped and wouldn't align with ADP. But that was one of the things that I did, you know, earlier on in BBM, where Jefferson reaching for Watson and one of the Dolphins and reaching for Andrews and Lamar, I think is kind of fun. But there are going to be some people out there who have it for cheap. See what Deet Feet does here. Deet Feet. Some names just kind of seem like they should be said in that way. Deet Feet. Deet Feet, go pick some players. All right. Philly and Vegas. Josh Jacobs has got to play, right? He's got to play. You would think he's got to play. You know what, though? I think this is a day. I've drafted enough running backs today. Fuck him. Fuck him. Christian Watson. Let's do it. You take a running back, Toasty Ace. I don't want any more running backs. I'm done with them. I'm done. All the guys who've drafted a lot of BBM teams. I have 2 Lamar Andrews 3-4 turn teams. God damn it. Just has not happened for me at all. Not even once. All right, Toasty Ace takes 1 running back. Jacob's still here. All right, I was going to take Jacobs at 35. I really do want to build a radicalized 0 RB team on stream, though. I got to tell you, I've been dying for it. I'm dying for it. Terry McLaurin. No piggery here, guys. You give me a 3rd draft, and I'm going to show you how much I really hate running backs. We're pissing it, eh? None of those 3-4 Lamar teams have JJ or Chase, though. That's true. That's true. Look, I mean, there's gives and takes for everything. But that said, just getting the combo like a cheap feels nice. But it is always going to be like what you build around it. That's why, too, like, you know, people are always worried about the closing line value and stuff. And, oh, like you reach for this guy. And like, yeah, you should never reach across your entire lineup. But if you reach it a couple spots, it's all just about the overall construction of the team. So like, it's all going to matter. Like, yeah, if you got Lamar and Mark at the 3-4 turn, like that's great. Lamar and Mark, like they're my pals. I call them by their first names. But you get them at the 3-4 turn, like, yeah, it feels pretty good, but it's like, what did you put around them? And that's why to me, like you give me Tyreek with Lamar and Mark Andrews, even if it's not them at a discount, I think that's a fun combo to head into week 17 with, as long as it can survive the atrophy, the war of attrition that comes over the other 16 weeks. I have a 4-5 turn Andrews-Lamar from, wow, good for Dylan. Yeah, I mean, those teams are definitely, it's funny though, like how that's such like, we're such fucking dorks, like collectively as a community. We're like, I do it too. We're like, I go back through my old teams and it's like, oh man, I remember when I got AR in this one at like 120. And then I also had the whole stack of this and like, it just looks, you look back fondly upon teams that have done absolutely nothing yet. But that's how you know you are fully in the weeds with us. That's how you know you belong here, is if you are waxing poetic about teams you drafted in May. Ben St. Nick. Nobody here doing anything too crazy. I don't know if this is because everybody who's in here was in the chat or what, but these teams are all pretty logical. Deep feet even doing a start that's not similar from what I was doing a couple drafts ago. So I think these teams are all looking pretty solid. Yeah, I love Spike Week for looking back at teams just to see the value. That is a very nice tool that our guys, Eric Beimfor, Rob Coakley over there doing great content, but Beimfor, doing a lot behind the scenes with that tool as well. The Fantasy Life Best Ball Hub, also a free tool that I think does a good job. I think they're a fun company that does a lot of stuff that obviously, Pete has a say in, but overall they think a lot about the consumers and just trying to keep people on that site and coming back. So if you don't want to pay any money, I would say use the Fantasy Life tool. And if you want to pay money, the Spike Week tool is a lot of fun too. Like Spike Week tool is the best ball hub on Fantasy Life, like on steroids, to use the cliche. But they both do a really good job giving you perspective on what you're building. I'm already so proud of teams that have yet to even make it through training camp. Yes, that's the tough part, is like you sometimes have a draft and you're done and you're like, man, I feel so good about this. Like this draft absolutely crushed. And then what'll happen is like that team is going to be one of your worst teams because somebody got hurt or something, or like they just didn't go off in the right weeks. The same players went off at the same time. Like it's so tough. And that's the thing with best ball, where if this is your first year doing it, and I'll say it to you, anybody out there, like this is my third year investing in best ball. And last year was the first year I was like, I'm going to put in thousands of dollars towards this. The year before it was like, here's a fun thing I'll try out, and I'll try to like get my football takes out and do it. And really you learn more each year, but also you learn that it's about just getting up to bat and doing the drafts over and over again and trying to be sound each time out, because you want to have 150, 500 bullets across all these various tournaments that all have the structure, that all have the ADP values, that all have the different logic to them that are good. And that's the thing I would say for anybody new, like, is that you just got to do a lot of drafts and be willing to be wrong about the draft. And then, and then you'll see how they come out. Like I would have never thought that the team that would advance for me to the finals and finish top 200 would have Trey Lance being hurt after week 1 like that. But it was Kittle and Ayuk who helped me get there. And then it was Burrow stacked with Higgins, like that helped that part of things. So and having Algier and Ramondre was also the big part of running back, but it's about all of that coming together and then somehow giving you enough to get through the weeks and then still be alive in the finals, and then not have Cincinnati Buffalo get canceled would be also a really helpful thing for teams that game stacked that one. But that was best ball is fun, man, but it is a journey. It is a journey. We're on the clock again. Well, you know what, guy? All right. So there's two interesting things that we could do here. We do have Madison, slight discount. We are going to take Marquise Brown because I want to build a 0 RB team. It's not a big enough discount for Madison yet. So we could be done and we could take Madison at this slight dip Or we could get Indianapolis, Las Vegas, Week 17 correlation live for an AR selection. 6 wide receivers in the first 6 rounds. We are officially a radicalized zero RB draft. Round of applause. No piggy here. No piggy. Feels so good. When you're the only one with yellow left, like you outlast everybody else who was taking receivers early, feels good. Feels good. Feels like you really fucking just laid your dick on the table and were like, let's see what you guys got here. Because I'm not done at receiver. I'm not fucking leaving at receiver. But again, I'm actually going to read this Underdog article that I had sent to you guys earlier. Let's see. So I think Winks would then say we don't draft another wide receiver again. 6 wide receiver count, has a 22% playoff advance rate. So that's it. It goes down at 7, goes down to 20% with 7 receivers, goes down to 18% with 8 receivers. So we are now in the sweet spot of a zero RB team. It is funny though, like last year, seeing a team like this, like where it's just a bunch of receivers, every stream. This year though, you never see, I think, these kind of wild man zero RB teams. And these are the teams that I love the most. I have so much fun drafting zero RB teams. Because it's basically like the bet that I have now made is a bet against every green name here. It's every single green name. And then it just becomes a question of like, how do we final destination these running backs? Like, how do we do that without relying solely on contingent value, but a mix of contingent value? Like, you know, yeah, we could take Mitchell as a lever against McCaffrey. We could take Spiller, I guess, an 18th round guy. We could take Algier as a lever against Bijan. We can take Ford as a lever against Chubb. We can take Malik Davis in the 18th round. Like, we can do a lot of shit. He's beginning to believe. Yeah. Now, again, really, I think you guys could tell a difference when watching me because I could feel it, you know, with how I'm projecting myself on camera. You can see the joy in my eyes when I get to draft a zero RB team like this. This is when the bread company really shines. This is when we get our full artisanal bread going. This is when the yeast starts to rise. Jake, though, doing zero RB in a different way. He's got his elite tight end, elite QB, and now he's spamming receiver. Fun team for Jake. Fun team. And Short Gamer drafting logically. Short Gamer just drafting a nice, solid, sound team. But yeah, Jake and my teams are fun. Jake and my teams are the kind of teams you can go to a bar with, play some flip cup, play some beer pong with our teams. All these running back teams, you know what they do? They go like, I'll have a white Zen. Oh, just one for me. That's what these teams would say at the bar. Meanwhile, our teams are like, fuck yeah, let's rock and roll. Let's do lines off the bar. Let's put a lampshade on our head. Wear a Hawaiian shirt. These are the kind of teams that Jake and I are building. No more receivers, though. We're done at receiver. I'll tell you that. Let's see what we get back here. What is Deet Feet going to do? So I don't love Dameon Pierce. Like, I actively don't love him. That said, I have so much Singletary, and this is now a 13-pick dip on Dameon Pierce for no particular reason. Unless he got hurt while I've been streaming the last few hours. Dameon Pierce, come on down. That is a zero RB start right there. Okay. So we've got Philly, Vegas, Green Bay, Washington, Arizona, Indianapolis. I would have taken Connor if he came back to me. He doesn't come back. Tua doesn't make sense here. I want to reach for AR. I think this is a time for Rachaad White share. Decent camp buzz for Rachaad White. Does feel like a guy who's got a role regardless of the situation for Tampa Bay. If they run good, if they run bad. 2 second-year running backs. Both have analytic flaws for sure. But I think these are guys that I'm comfortable with in this kind of build. Feel like a pig this draft. There you go. See, that's what happens. You see as your RB team, you see me and Jake Twitch's teams here ripping shots, doing pickleback shots, and you're like, whoa, these guys are the life of the party here with their wide receivers. And then, you just feel like a fucking square with your running backs. And I get it. Because I think you are a square for drafting running backs. Now that it's not me doing it, now you're square. These nerds over here, give them some wedgies with their running backs. And so the team so far, give it a read. Dameon Pierce, Rashad White at running back. At receiver, A.J. Brown. This should be like the Chicago Bulls entrance. Burner. Here's A.J. Brown running out in his jacket. A.J. Brown. Devontae Adams. Ooh. Christian. A new name in these parts. Christian Watson. That's him coming out. Terry McLaurin. Marquise Brown. Michael Pittman, the closer. Wow, what a squad. The crowd roars uproariously. It's like a Roman gladiator crowd as these receivers enter. Is this a modified Puppet Lindquist? Yeah. I mean, honestly, the voices, I guess, could be all pretty similar. I do think my voices sometimes tend to run together. I'll give you that. What's my NFL team? I grew up liking the Cowboys, but I do not root for an NFL team currently actively. I enjoy the Eagles more than I'm willing to admit, but I root for my son to not be an Eagles fan because my wife is an Eagles fan and we are living in the Philly suburbs. But yeah, I grew up liking the Cowboys because my dad was a Giants fan. And I thought as a 4 or 5 year old that it'd be fun to root for another team that competed with your dad's team, because we would always compete a lot when I was a kid. Part of why I have toxic competitiveness as an adult, and didn't realize as a little kid that it would become this Freudian thing that everybody's like, you're a Cowboys fan because your dad was a Giants fan. It's like, well, I mean, I guess when you put it like that, it sounds odd. but yeah, I was a Cowboys fan and really barely remember the Super Bowl days. But boy, do I remember Tony Romo botching the holds. Boy, do I remember Dez not catching it. I remember all those things very well. Got no joy in my adulthood out of Cowboys fandom. So there we go. But also too, it's like, because I know too much about football and I think too much about the stuff, I don't want to root for teams directly, unless it's gambling related things. I'm probably a bigger Colts fan now than I am a Cowboys fan, just because I want to root for this platonic, beautiful version of football to exist that I think can be there with Shane Steichen and what he's building. That's what is the fun part for me, but it also makes it if I were rooting for the Cowboys this year, I would be going insane. I'd be like, are you what? They're bringing Brian Schottenheimer. They're going to, Tony Pollard's not going to get enough touches, all this shit. And I think that's the not fun part of rooting for teams that I'm able to avoid. Dez caught it. Dez did not catch it. Here we go. I think Dez caught it, but the NFL really has changed the definition of what a catch was enough. And that would have been a year too. I really think the Cowboys could have won it all that year, but what are you going to do? Would you psychos are playing preseason showdown tomorrow? I might throw in a few entries, but not going to go crazy, not going to max it out, but I'll probably throw in a few just to see, just to get the kick the cobwebs off a little bit for that one. What is Peach Suplex and Deet Feet going to do here? You got to wonder what these guys are going to do. You got to wonder. Hopefully they don't time out. Fuck you. Fuck you, Peach Suplex. Well, that was what I wanted. That was what I wanted out of this situation. Ugh. Hope somebody drops Peach Suplex on his head. I almost called him the C word, the CS word. Oh, and then Dylan goes too. Oh, that sucks. That's a sucky pocket for sucky people. Fuck. All right. I hope Peach Suplex is in chat. Or I hope they are. I hope they really felt that fuck you. Ryan Robinson, come on down. God damn it. Pierce, White, Robinson. Obviously, we're not taking another receiver right now. Don't have Seattle. Don't have Pittsburgh. Anybody coming up? Mitchell's not going to come back to me. I think he's more valuable for me than any of these other teams. So Mitchell it is. Head of ADP. I think Mitchell's been underpriced all offseason anyway. I'm recovering from how mad I am at that guy taking AR for no fucking reason. Did this guy at least have Taylor? Now let's dig deep. Okay, so he has Josh Jacobs. You got Burrow. You don't need fucking AR with Burrow. You got discount Burrow, you greedy little bitch. There we go, Jake. Peach Suplex is who we'd bully at the bar after 10 Vegas bombs. Yeah, Peach Suplex is there just fucking ruining everybody's time. Peach Suplex called the cops and said, oh, this bar's too loud. These RB guys are having too much fun. Oh, he can't have Anthony Richardson too? Fuck off. Peach Suplex. Thought you had a cool name, man, and you're fucking the biggest narc of them all. Hall monitor ass Peach Suplex. Get out of town. Nico Collins at 112. I'm just going to criticize every pick he makes. Oh, yeah, Cortland Sutton. Yeah, it's going to make a difference. Oh, Mike Evans. Oh, I guess what you want, guys. Sorry, Peach Suplex. The last 10 years of his career don't count this year. Anthony Richardson. Taking Anthony Richardson. Ugh. It's my man's. You don't take my man's from me. You don't come into my bar when Jake and I are having a good time drafting zero RB teams and steal my man away. There we go. That was better. I have his jersey here. Where's Peach Suplex's jersey? Does he have an AR jersey next to him ready to go at all times? I bet he doesn't. Bet he doesn't. I think he was also probably mad that he didn't get Dak, would be my guess. But also, he took Burrow unstacked. He has unstacked Burrow, too? What a dipshit. What a dipshit. Peach Booplex. Get the fuck out of here. Hey, if Peach Suplex comes across the stream, I hope he subscribes. Hopes he hits the join button. $4.99. It's the one way to make it up to me, Peach Suplex. It's the one fucking way. Ooh. This would have been a perfect draft if I'd gotten AR there. Well, I mean, one of those drafts you file away, and I would think about the entire rest of the offseason and go like, remember that time I did that third one on stream and I thought, I'm going to get all the guys I want here. No. What a dildo. If I tilted long enough about this, because I got to tell you, it's not going down for me. My rage is only growing. So what other stream concepts should I do? Like, can I do a weed stream, or would that get me would that cost me job opportunities? That's a question I got to wonder. Like, can I come on here and be like fucking baked? Can I do that? Can I smoke weed on a stream and not cost myself opportunities? I don't know. Am I willing to explore, play with the studio space? Potentially. I've been thinking about doing a 420 draft stream for a while. I got to tell you guys, that's been one of the things stewing in my head. And now there's nothing holding me back. Now that I'm an everyday streamer. Sure. Well, FO isn't paying me. Why worry? It's not about FO because I run everything at FO. So I got to do whatever there. It's more about like, well, other people now want to pay me that might be willing to pay me. But yeah, fair point. I've decided I like rooms where I'm the only badge. I got to tell you, Dylan, those are my favorite rooms. Whenever I'm the only badge, actually, there's one time where I was the only badge in a room recently, and I peeled off 8 straight rounds of wide receivers to start the draft because they kept leaving wide receivers behind. And then it was like, okay, I got to 7, and that's pushing it. Like, again, it's 6. If you're going to do a radicalized URB, you do 6, you cut it off. I definitely was like, okay, I'm going to then take 7 because they made 7 early. And then they had Jahan Dotson falling to like 90. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I got to take 8. And then they sniped me on every QB. It was awful, but that was a fun team. But yeah, the drafts, do them at 10 o'clock at night, do them at 9 o'clock at night, do them after, like if Pete's streaming, do them 10 minutes after Pete's stream starts, because then all the badges are trying to get into that draft, or they get into like an overlay draft or whatever. So yeah, I think it's fun to draft against non-badges, but then sometimes it really bites you in the ass because they will snipe your ass left and right. All right, so we've got 4 running backs, 6 receivers. I do see some ways that I would not be opposed to going right now. Nothing Detroit, nothing KC. Oh, I like Dalton Kincaid. I like him, and I've gotten not enough of him now that his price has come up and people are realizing he's actually going to be a stud play. So I'm going to take Kincaid here. And then I got to really fucking think about this one. Who's going to be my QBs? Not getting AR really threw off the whole strat here, I got to tell you. I have so much Kendre, but I really do think that Kendre is the better play, and I have Tampa Bay already. And we have a lot of backs who are starting the season with a roll. So I'm going to take Kendre here over Jamal Williams. I have so much Kendre that I should be taking more Jamal Williams, but I think if we're playing for week 17 here, Pierce, White, Robinson, Mitchell, all those guys have roles to start the year. So will Jamal Williams, but Jamal Williams might not have one by week 17. So I think that's my logic for going Kendre here. But here we have tail spinned out. We got a 0-5-6-1. Still have room to take some more running backs, but I now don't even think we're not even that urgent at running back. We don't really need 7 running backs here. So let's see what we do here. Baked every draft. There we go, Broncos. Majority of my I love everybody coming out of the woodworks here. Yes, I mean, look, I'd be lying if I said I didn't too, but lately not doing it in the AMs just because I don't know. I have no issue with waking and baking. I think you can have a perfectly functional life waking and baking, getting through life. And sometimes, honestly, like if you're an anxious person, like I sometimes can be a little bit anxious, I do think having that a nice positive thing. When you're trying to be productive, though, I do think waking and baking tends to be a little bit tough sometimes, depending on the strain. That's your go-to. Rooms where you're the only badge at 1 a.m. are the best. That is a good way to say that too. Drafting at weird times. One of those strategies that like is not a must-have strategy, but definitely one that feels pretty good. Oh man. God, I gotta be honest, I'm still tilting a little bit about the AR thing. I think this team would be pristine if I had gotten AR. And now I'm gonna have to like kind of get a little weird with my QB situation, I think. But it's okay. Jake takes Roschon at a reasonable price. That's what you got to do when you are going as aggressively 0 RB as Jake did. But he got Kamara, A-Chain, Herbert, Roschon, Algier. Jake is absolutely building the kind of team I would build. I always like, honestly, Jake is one of the guys, like Short Gamer always has very solid drafts. I think Jake here in the one hole probably drafts the most similarly to how I like to draft from what I've seen from the streams that I've done with Jake in the room. So kudos to Jake. I know you're in the chat, but I enjoy the way you draft. I like watching you work, bud. I like watching you work. Is a Swolecast going on right now? I think the live viewers are going down a little. So I presume there's other competition. Either way, I appreciate all you guys hanging out with me for as long as you did. Whether you hung out for the full 2 hours and change or you watched the part, still appreciate you guys spending time with me. Didn't trust Purdy making it past you in feet. That is fair. That is fair. I'm in the hunt for some QBs. I can tell you that. But which QBs? Oh, there we go. I figured. That's what happens when you stream for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Is that you're going to run into some streams here. But again, kudos to all you guys who are hanging out with me. You guys are the chosen few, the special, the men among men and women among women, if there's any women. You got to hope. You got to believe. All right. Let's have some fun here with these last few picks. Oh, Peach Suplex, you had Anthony Richardson and you didn't take Alec Pierce. Very smart, very savvy draft to be doing. Fucking dipshit. All right. I'm not going to say that this is a spite pick. No, you know what? I don't need a receiver. I don't need a receiver. I was going to take Alec Pierce, but I'm not going to do that. Let's take Deonta Foreman. This will round out our running back room, and I think I'll be done here with this one. So Foreman, I have so much Roshan. I think Foreman makes sense to take here as a one-off. Tosi Ace takes 2 tight ends. I could still take Alec Pierce just to make sure that Peach Suplex gets nothing correlated, but I don't even think he cares about stacking guys up. So I don't know it's actually going to hurt him. In fact, I'm going to take Jordan Love here and not push that. First QB off the board. Love to Watson. There's the correlation. The one we've all been waiting for. There we go, Beachhead. If you can't get a job because you play, it's not a job you want to have. That's true. It's funny, though, because, like, I personally, like, I don't think that, like, if I smoke weed or whatever, if I'm actively, you know, talking about it, I don't think that makes me a worse fantasy football analyst or host or whatever. Like, as long as you're doing the thing that you're supposed to do. And if anything, too, like, you know, I think it opens your mind, man. Let's see with that fourth eye, all the football takes. But no, like, I just think like weed is one of those things that it's still, we still have the stigma because we all grew up with it being like, I grew up in the 80s, or, you know, some of my earliest memories rather, or me in the 80s. And it's like, you know, the war on drug shit that was everywhere in the 80s and 90s and every video game arcade. Like, you know, that doesn't exist anymore. Like, people, you could get ketamine now. Like, you should be able to get ketamine. You can get ketamine. Ever seen someone drink a beer or a glass of wine while streaming? Exactly the same thing. Let it rip, bro. All right, fair enough. That is true. That is true. I am one of those people that is drinking many a beer. Or drinking? God, that's not a word. Drank many a beer on stream in my day. But yeah. But there's something taboo. I think there's even some, I think on Twitch, like, you're not allowed to smoke weed on stream, even if it's like vaping, unless you're in a legal weed state. And then you have to, like, I don't know. Like, I remember hearing that at some point. I don't know actually how true that was. I might have just made that up entirely. But I knew that there's some weird things about that. Some of the puritanical values that are left over here. Let's see, how sweaty are my armpits? Could be worse. Could be worse. It's hot in this room. The AC does not hit this studio room very well. Only on this stream. Well, you got me debating whether I should be smoking weed and questioning my armpit sweat levels. That's the level of reality you get here, guys. This is what 150 drafts looks like. The fact that my t-shirt is any shade of white should be impressive enough. In fact, this isn't just yellow. See what Jake does. Jake building a fun team. I'll read my team in the meantime. QB, we got Jordan Love here. Reached a little bit for him to lock him down. Running back, for a 0 RB room, this is a pretty stout one. Damian Pierce, Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Elijah Mitchell, Kendra Miller, Deonta Foreman. Receiver, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, Terry McLaurin, Marquise Brown, and Michael Pittman. And then a tight end, we got Dalton Kincaid. This is like the kind of team that I like to build. I like it a lot. Got our week 17 correlations with the wide receiver ones. 2 of them, technically, with Brown and Devontae Adams and Michael Pittman. And I think this is I think you're seeing here too. This is the benefit of doing the radicalized 0 RB, is that you can still hit a nice running back pocket, especially if you do punt QB later. It just comes down to your comfort levels. Like, are you comfortable with Jordan Love being your QB1? I am. You might not be. Eat some edibles. I'm not a huge edible guy. Like, I'll do them sometimes, but I'm not. I don't know why I pulled that chat so fast. Eat some edibles. I just had that be the ad here. Because now we don't have the Football Outsiders ad over here. Wait, no, over here. So we can add in lobby here saying eat some edibles. Go use promo code SPLASH. Fuck, I keep pointing the wrong ways. Go use promo code SPLASH. Go eat some edibles. Those are your 2 ad reads. When you stream for 3 hours, you get the pit stains. Yeah, that's how you know you're doing a hard day's work in the content coal mines, is when you have full pit stains. Zamir White at 173. Copper prices going off. Interesting team for copper prices, rather. Copper White. He's now fully aligned with Zamir White. Christian McCaffrey. Then he runs away from running back for a little bit, gets the elite QB stacked with Devonta, which we like. Gets some Niners along with McCaffrey, along with his Purdy that he got later on. Fun team for copper prices. He wasn't partying quite as hard as Jake Twitch and I at the bar with our 0 RB builds, but he put a nice team together here, I think. Nice value on Kadarius Toney too. Could be nicer, but still nice value on Kadarius Toney. Draft mid acid trip. I did shrooms once and I would never do it again. I mean, I guess like you could talk me into doing anything again. I had a bad trip with shrooms, so I know acid's supposed to be not quite as harsh, but did not enjoy shrooms. Thought I had to propose to an ex at the time frame. Thought I was dying at one point when I did shrooms with a buddy in LA. Micro dosing shrooms, great time. Full dosing shrooms, bad time for Spags. All right, we got 4 more picks left. Got a 1-6-6-1, so we can take one more receiver. We don't need to. We can take one more running back. We don't need to. Kyler is falling so much. Kyler doing a big old folly fall here. Man, this is tough. I really don't like Kyler, but I am going to take Kyler here. I could have punted him 2 more picks, but there's nobody else. I don't think that Toasty Ace is going to take anybody else I want. Shrooms are amazing, high dose or micro dose. I could only speak for one of those being a good time for me. I could talk about my shroom trip at length because like everything was awful. Every part of it. The beginning was okay, and then there was one point where I thought I heard the neighbors underneath tapping the floor because we were being so loud, and I think they did tap it briefly, but then the sound wouldn't stop, and I don't think they were doing that. It was really a fucking weird one for me as somebody that, again, like no stranger to doing the occasional druggos. But boy, tough time. God, I hate Kyler as a pick. Even his quotes are like not filled with optimism by any stretch. Okay, we're gonna take the 7th receiver here, and it is going to be Devontae Parker. So we're getting a little bit of correlation here. Parker and Kincaid. Parker, just the guy I do want to up my exposure to a little bit. The contract they gave him is pretty good. He was very good last year. That's the thing that I think makes it tough with Tyquan Thornton for me as well, is that Thornton is young, but he's not doing anything. And Parker was actually good, and they gave him money after the flirtation that they had with Hopkins. But Parker last year, a 40% receiving DVOA, 0.2 EPA per target. He is the kind of guy, too old for sure, but should be okay as long as he can be healthy this year. So I think Devontae Parker is a good pick at this range that people are just now catching up on. One bad trip ruins it all. Did shrooms a couple times. It was fine. Then I had a horrible trip, walked like an hour home. Bad trips. Never fun for anybody. Joe saying actually recovered really well with the wide receivers after starting 3 running backs. Like it a lot. Joe, which one are you in this room? Or Joe just talking in general? I don't see anybody who started with 3 running backs, but sure, you can absolutely recover. Oh, you might be watching the previous stream. Yes, I think that's possible too. I think I honestly I think I'm drafting well right now. I think I'm in prime draft form. And I've said this, and I know it's tough for people to hear because you could still win. You could win BBM 4 with 1 entry. Absolutely. That said, I do think the more you just keep drafting and the more you're reading up on things, keeping up with all the news and whatever, aligned with the ADP pockets, I think that you really can do some damage with your teams the more you draft in August, especially. So I think I'm drafting. I think I'm putting up some really good teams here down the home stretch. You might disagree. I know people like to see different kinds of things with the drafts here. But these 3 teams, I think, all have their own merits, all very different. That kind of skill or that ability to pull that off and feel good about it, I think only comes when you've drafted probably at least 100 teams. It's just so hard to time the ADP pockets and all that shit. Never do salvia. That's the worst. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that from people. Wasn't there a point where Joe Rogan was really into salvia and was pushing it, and a lot of people did salvia and had the worst time possible? I feel like that rings a bell for me. All All right, let's review the team so far. We got Love and Murray. I think I'm going to take one more QB. We have Dameon Pierce, Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Elijah Mitchell, Kendre Miller, Deonta Foreman, receiver, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, Terry McLaurin, Marquise Brown, Michael Pittman, and then a late addition here, Devontae Parker. And Dalton Kincaid is our lone tight end, so we probably need 2 more tight ends or 1 and a third QB. We'll feel it out. Mac Jones went? No, he didn't go. This ADP came up enough where he'd be on the screen. Now, Mac Jones is below Jimmy? That feels crazy. I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he should be lower than Mac, or that Mac Jones should be lower than him. This is another, like, this is Mac Jones' career is like on the line this year. If he doesn't come through with a new offensive coordinator, like he's getting squeezed out, and he's got to hope he hits the trade market. And I don't think he's put up enough tape that people are going to want to trade for him. So everybody anti-salvia. It's like walking through your nightmares for 3 minutes. That doesn't sound like a good time. That said, like with any of those drugs where there's like the risk profile, even with shrooms, like again, microdosing shrooms, good time. Full dosing shrooms, like I don't need to lose control that much. Like if I smoke weed, it's all upside, really. Like I'm not one of those people who gets like paranoid or whatever. So that might be part of it too. But it's like, you do drugs for fun. You do anything where you're doing it, it's like, oh, my life could be worse for this. Even if it's for a brief period of time. I tend to not have as much of a leash for that stuff personally. Wish I didn't hate Kyler so much. Because if I didn't hate Kyler, this could be a 2 QB build. But I do hate Kyler. That's where we run into issues. All right. Sam Howell. 3rd QB. Terry McLaurin is here. And I think my last player here. Oh, man. But Gesicki's a nice value at this point. I said this guy should be drafted. I do think. Wait, no. Logan. I put in Lance. I'm like, Lance Thomas. Love that guy at tight end. No, Logan Thomas, I do think is a player that if Howell is okay enough to be useful, if he is a guy that actually matters, and this offense by Eric Bieniemy is actually good, Logan Thomas is one of those guys that should benefit. So my final team here going to be at QB, Love, Murray, Howell. At running back, Dameon Pierce, Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Elijah Mitchell, Kendre Miller, Deonta Foreman. I think a really good room for a 0 RB start. The wide receivers that I got with the 0 RB start, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, Terry McLaurin, Marquise Brown, Michael Pittman, and Devontae Parker. And then a tight end, a little too thin, but I do like Kincaid more than the public does. Kincaid, Logan Thomas. I think I could have not taken Devontae Parker and then gotten the 3rd tight end. I think that would be the ideal here. 3-6-6-3 would look pretty good, but I feel okay about this team. It is unique. It has good wide receivers, high projection too. But that's going to happen with 3 QB builds. I think it's a good team. It's a good team. Let's see what our old friend Peach Suplex closed out with here. So we got Joe Burrow with AR. Damn, it's going to keep doing that. Pollard, Jacobs, Montgomery, Harris, CEH. Oh, good CEH who might get cut. Chase Brown. Deneric Prince, by the way, is literally coming for CEH's job. CEH is missing practice lately. Deneric Prince is out there with the first team. So something to keep in mind there. I would not keep taking CEH. And I'm not saying that just because I hate Peach Suplex for taking AR. Receiver, he got Lamb, Cooper, Evans, Sutton, Nico, Jefferson, Shakir, Renfro. Peach Suplex, your team is shit. Your team is shit, and if you didn't take AR, it would have been better. Would have been better. Got to take more 3 tight end and Underdog. I agree, guys. But all right, so let's close it out. So here's the deal. Tomorrow, oh, you get the full screen me. Tomorrow, DraftKings draft coming up here. I'll be doing that. I'll probably do another binge mode there. We'll hit a few in a row, but DraftKings draft coming up. No promises on that one, though. Maybe I should do just one. I don't know. Either way, follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. And on my handle, by the way, I will put out my fantasy football take. I haven't done one the last few days, but I'll give you guys a take coming up this afternoon. And of course, come back tomorrow. And if you are not subscribed yet, please do that down below. It's over my face. It's how you know it's important. Subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to 3K subs on here. That would be the greatest thing for me heading into football season. So please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, any player takes, any questions you have, any thoughts, anything you want to push back on me on, please feel free to do it. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys who hung out with me here. 2.5 hours. We had a good time. Hopefully I did. Hopefully you guys did as well. But thank you guys for hanging out with me here, and come back tomorrow. And again, use that promo code SPLASH on Underdog if you want to get your deposit matched up to $100. But tomorrow's a DraftKings day, so no Underdog plugs. We're going to come in here. We're going to put on our DraftKings hat. We're going to get to work. But thank you for hanging out with me here, and I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. Bye.